Chapter 2285. How dare you steal my power? I want you dead. Indelia was instantly enraged. This power belonged to her. She wouldn't allow anyone to touch it. But Chun Zhao had actually stolen her power. This made her completely explode. It was different from when she faced Angie, Bo, Untu, Fi, and Alterando. Against the four of them, Indelia treated them like a game. It was a suppression of power. She could toy with them as she pleased. But Chun Zhao had stolen what belonged to her. This was what she cared about the most. All the scarlet gas turned back into a terrifying scarlet giant. It was even bigger and scarier than before. The scarlet energy in the surroundings was also rising. But in the next moment, the dark magma turned into a curtain that enveloped the scarlet giant. The scarlet giant rammed against the curtain. Indelia's expression froze. She realized that her connection with the red giant had been cut off. The red giant had already used up most of her power. Now that the red giant had been devoured, she was even more furious. Give it back. The red gas around Indelia turned into a huge red sword and slashed at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao only glanced at Indelia casually. He didn't dodge. He just let the red sword slash his body. His body, which should have been cut open, stood there unharmed except for the cracked ground. Instead, the red sword fell apart, turning into red crystals that filled the sky. Indelia was shocked. Angie, Bo, Untu, Fi, and Alterando all had the same expression. Was this still the weak Chun Zhao? Shouldn't Chun Zhao be defeated by Indelia? Chun Zhao's aura was still small and insignificant. But now, no one would believe that Chun Zhao was weak. That's it. Chun Zhao said casually, If that's the case, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to face Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary. Defeat them? Huh. Are you kidding me? Indelia was shocked and furious. Chun Zhao's clearly weak but terrifying power made her hair stand on end. You thief! You stole my power. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me. Delia suddenly realized that it was definitely because Chun Zhao had stolen her power. Otherwise, how could the weak Chun Zhao defeat him? There was no reason for Chun Zhao to win. Chun Zhao shrugged, not planning to defend himself. I will use even greater power to defeat you. The scarlet aura in Delia's body began to fill up again. Chun Zhao didn't take the chance to attack Delia. The red aura in Delia's body was still very small to Chun Zhao, even insignificant. But to Chun Zhao, it was like a supplement. It was better than nothing. This scarlet gas contained strong negative emotions, and it was very easy to incite people's anger. However, these negative emotions were nothing compared to the King of Wrath's bloodline. Chun Zhao also considered that it was probably because of his King of Wrath bloodline that he wasn't affected by the red gas. In some sense, the red gas was very similar to Chun Zhao's dark lava. It was just that one existed in liquid form. The other one existed in a gaseous state. As for the difference in color, it wasn't really a difference. For example, Chun Zhao's dark lava should have been called dark serum, but after it merged with the lava, it became black with a hint of red. Later on, the dark lava had devoured mutants or demons a few times, causing the black color to overshadow the red. So, the color of the dark serum would change according to different attributes and the host's growth. If the red gas was also the mutated dark serum of a demon with the King of Wrath bloodline, it was understandable. Delia's red aura was filled up again. She attacked Chun Zhao again. The process was different, but the result was the same. Delia stared at Chun Zhao in disbelief. Just like that, Chun Zhao faced her attack head-on. He didn't dodge or block, but her attack didn't do anything. To her, this was completely incomprehensible. Was it because her magic level was too low? Impossible. In the past, these spells would be catastrophic and destructive. The other four were dumbfounded too. They knew that Chun Zhao was powerful, but he was clearly very weak. How could he block Delia's attack when he was so weak? They couldn't understand. They couldn't understand. Chen Zhao just stood there listlessly. Looks like you don't have any other moves, Qin Zhao said calmly. Gritting her teeth, Delia kept staring at Qin Zhao. She really couldn't do anything. The most powerful spell was useless before Qin Zhao. She didn't know what to do either. Qin Zhao pointed at Delia. Are you ready to die? Panting, Delia looked at Chen Zhao. Her mind spun. Although Chen Zhao blocked all her attacks, he still couldn't move. But he hadn't really counterattacked. Even the black substance from before only wrapped around her scarlet giant and did not attack her directly. Maybe he couldn't even fight back. Maybe he's just bluffing now. Qin Zhao had absorbed quite a lot of scarlet aura. Although Delia's scarlet aura was endless, it was still too little. To Chen Zhao, an extra drop of water in a lake didn't mean much. So, there was no point in keeping Delia alive. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The vibration was very unusual. It interrupted Chen Zhao's next move. Rumble! The entire barren market was shaking violently. Zhang Tianyi rushed to the edge of the roof and looked at a huge ball of fire in the distance. Over there. Zhang Tianyi frowned. He remembered that it should be the location of one of the seals. It was the only seal that hadn't been opened yet. Wendy's expression was unprecedentedly serious. All 4 seals have been opened. How is that possible? What exactly happened there? What's wrong? I've already monitored the area. There's no one nearby at all. Why was the seal still opened? You mean no one has been nearby? Zhang Tianyi asked, surprised. Yes, what's wrong? Not a single person. Not a single person. Is there a problem? That location isn't that remote. How is it possible that no one has approached that area? Chapter 2286. At this time, even Winda found the problem. That area was not remote. Judging from the number of participants in the Battle of Holy Glory, an entire desolate market, and the distribution of people, there should be people approaching that area. But the current situation was that no one approached that area at all. Winda glanced at the place where the seal was unlocked in the distance and turned back to the monitoring room. The scene in that area of the monitoring room was still calm, and nothing had happened. And compared to the changes that had happened in that area in reality, how could Winda not understand that the monitoring screen had been tampered with? And this monitoring screen had been artificially modified, not by magic. There was no doubt that this must be AI Nancy's work. And AI Nancy considered that if magic was used to hide the truth in this monitoring screen, then Winda would definitely be able to find out. Therefore, Nancy had used purely computer technology. This was the most important part. Winda had a wealth of knowledge in magic and alchemy, but he knew nothing about computers. At least he didn't know anything about computers that exceeded the level of ordinary people. Winda almost smashed the entire monitoring room. He had actually been toyed with by an apprentice over and over again. This was not a pleasant memory. Success! AI Nancy shouted in surprise, although their plan had gone awry halfway. In particular, Scythe's death made them think that the plan had failed. But they didn't expect that the final twist would actually allow them to break 4 seals without any danger. The black soul floating around AI Nancy let out a strange laugh. Chi, success, it actually succeeded. The black soul seemed very excited. God's body, I'm about to have God's body. Just then, another companion said, Don't you think it's strange? Our seemingly perfect plan was actually riddled with holes. But such a flawed plan actually succeeded in the end. Don't you have any doubts? What you want to say is that there is another group of people with the same purpose as us. The black soul also calmed down. Isn't it obvious? Not only did the other party have the same purpose as us, but they also used our plan and made up for it in our plan. Whatever, let's go get God's body first, the black soul said impatiently. From his point of view, as long as they managed to get their hands on God's body, they would be the final winner regardless of the other party's motives. However, at that moment, someone else said, Only the few of us know about this plan, but the other group also knows about this plan. This means that one of us has betrayed the team. As soon as he said this, everyone couldn't help but stop and glance at each of their companions. It seemed that everyone was a suspect, and everyone had a reason to betray him. AI Nancy, you are the most suspicious, a companion said as he pointed at AI Nancy. What right do you have to say that about me? Anand glared at her companion. You've always been a traitor, so it's not surprising that you betrayed us again, is it? Just then another person said, Russell, you're so eager to bite on Nancy. Could it be that you're the traitor? Dalav, do you think you're innocent? You've been secretly leaving marks along the way. Who are you leaving these marks for? At this time, another person was bitten out. AI Nancy was shocked to find that everyone seemed to have their own ulterior motives. Everyone had a reason to betray and be suspicious. On the contrary, she, the traitor, was the cleanest. At this moment, the mutual accusations and suspicions completely broke out. AI Nancy looked at these people. She watched them go from suspicion to quarrel, and from quarrel to fight. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot, and they attacked each other mercilessly. At this moment, Einander finally realized that something was wrong. Although they were all suspects, shouldn't the most important thing at this time be to collect the spoils of war that belonged to them? They shouldn't be killing each other here. And looking at their attacks, it seemed that they had no intention of showing mercy at all. Everyone attacked each other as if they were their mortal enemies. How could this be? How could this be? What's wrong with them? AI Nancy's mind shook. They were affected by some kind of magic. But how was this possible? Every one of them was a super expert. How could someone control their minds? No magic could control their minds at the same time. In fact, it was impossible for anyone to be controlled by someone. Even Zhongtiani, or the 23rd generation blood, Mary, couldn't do it. Although they were top experts, they could defeat her group of people, but they couldn't control them. What was going on? They hadn't lost their minds. Suddenly, a hand was placed on AI Nancy's shoulder. AI Nancy was so scared that she retreated and turned her head. He realized that it was an unfamiliar Asian face. Who are you? You're very special. I can't even see your fate. You should know that I can even influence those supreme spiritualists, but you can't. The Asian man had a faint smile. AI Nancy looked at the battlefield between her companions and then at the Asian man. You're the mastermind behind all this. It's obvious, isn't it? The Asian man shrugged, and there was a proud smile on his face. I just gently fiddled with it, and then everyone's fate was entangled. Their actions, decisions, and even their thoughts were all guided and controlled by me. Who are you? Don't play tricks in front of me. AI Nancy was already secretly preparing to fight back. Who am I? My name is Li Zhongshan. Li Zhongshan. AI Nancy frowned. She didn't remember such a person in the spiritual world. You're very special, but you're still a little immature. If you become strong enough in the future, you can come find me and become one of us. AI Nancy wasn't so gullible. After silently brewing, she suddenly threw a bottle of magic water at Li Zhongshan. However, when the magic water was less than a foot away from Li Zhongshan, it suddenly stopped and condensed into a water ball in midair. I said, "You're not strong enough, and you're not smart enough. You shouldn't attack an existence stronger than you. Do you think you can make me retreat with just a few words? Then what do I have to do to make you leave? Do you need me to cut off your limbs? Or step over your dead body?" Chapter 2287. Just as AI Nancy was hesitating whether to retreat or not, an unfamiliar voice came from behind. Li Zhongshan stopped playing around. AI Nancy suddenly turned around and looked behind her. It was a woman with short red hair, heavy makeup, and a low-cut top. The woman also had an Asian face. The woman just glanced at Nancy casually. AI Nancy felt like she was being stared at by a dangerous creature. All the hairs on her body stood up. Danger. This woman was extremely dangerous. All right, Red Lotus, stop scaring the kids. Let's go. Li Zhongshan laughed and tried to smooth things over. The woman called Red Lotus looked at AI Nancy again before following Li Zhongshan's footsteps. AI Nancy's expression flickered. She looked at the departing Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus, then at her companions. They didn't seem to know two uninvited guests had just arrived. They were still fighting each other, as if they viewed everyone else as irreconcilable enemies. After Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus left, Li Zhongshan's expression suddenly darkened. Did Zhuo Yiqing fail? I don't know the specifics, but he seems to have failed. Red Lotus said. What do we do now? That Zhang Tianyi wasn't thrown into the game as a chess piece. If he tries to interfere, we won't be his match even if we work together. There's nothing we can do. Let's go meet up with the boss first and see what he plans. Red Lotus said. The two quickly met up with their companions. The boss they spoke of was currently sitting on a rock, one hand on his temple as if he was in a deep sleep. To his left was a man in a black robe. His expression was extremely ugly and somewhat annoyed. To his right was a woman holding a makeup box, dressing herself in front of the mirror. She didn't seem to care about the tense atmosphere in front of her. Boss. Li Zhongshan walked up and greeted him. The boss narrowed his eyes and looked at the returning Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus. Yes, you're back. What's the situation now? Li Zhongshan asked. Let Zhuo Yiqing speak, the boss said indifferently. According to the original plan, we plan to send Zhang Tianyi into the Scarlet Battlefield and make him a chess piece before releasing the Red Demon. But for some reason, the teleportation device was triggered, and Zhang Tianyi wasn't sent in. Could it be that someone else inadvertently met the conditions you set, so someone else replaced Zhang Tianyi and was transported inside? Li Zhongshan asked. Impossible, although I have set up a lot of teleportation devices in the Wasteland market. That device is specially reserved for Zhang Tianyi. Moreover, that device also has a specific condition. Other than Zhang Tianyi, no one else can trigger it. Could it be that Zhang Tianyi triggered it and then he cracked it? I believe he can break it, but that teleportation happened in an instant. He doesn't have time to break it. You've explained so much, but you still failed in the end, the woman said disdainfully. All right, now is not the time to blame anyone. Scheming against Zhang Tianyi is already very risky. Zhuo Yiqing's failure isn't unexpected. The boss interrupted the woman. We can only take it one step at a time. If we really have to face Zhang Tianyi, then we need to prepare in advance. Don't act rashly when the time comes. Don't look for me if it's convenient to fight. I can't help. Li Zhongshan said indifferently. He wasn't completely powerless, but he really didn't want to fight Zhang Tianyi. With his combat ability, fighting Zhang Tianyi was no different from suicide. It's best not to fight if we can, the boss said in a low voice. That old guy is really too strong. Even if we work together and prepare in advance, it's still hard to guarantee that we can escape unscathed. The boss looked at Li Zhongshan. Old Li, do you have a way to make Zhang Tianyi change his mind? How is that possible? I'm not an immortal. That old man's cultivation is so much higher than mine. Previously, he was just scheming against me. I slightly twisted his mind. It's impossible for me to do it a second time. That's right. Boss, since this mistake was caused by me, I have the responsibility to take responsibility. I'll deal with Zhang Tianyi. Zhuo Yiqing solemnly said. You? Are you sure you can stop him? Half an hour. I can stop him for half an hour at most. Oh, Zhuo Yiqing, when did you learn to talk big? You actually said you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour? Even if all of us work together, we can't guarantee that we can stop him for half an hour. You're just talking big. The woman began to attack Zhuo Yiqing with sharp words. Everyone was already used to the woman's words and actions. The boss ignored the woman's harsh words and seriously looked at Zhuo Yiqing. Can you really guarantee that you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour? I can. Good, half an hour. As long as you complete the mission, I'll let bygones be bygones. The boss stood up. Then let's move out and welcome the red demon. Bai Shui, are you ready? The woman put away her makeup box, a rare solemn expression on her face. Zhuo Yiqing, send us over there. Zhuo Yiqing nodded and casually threw out a die. It rolled until it was a 4. In an instant, the die shot out a beam of light that enveloped the boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and Bai Shui. Then, the 4 disappeared from Zhuo Yiqing's sight. Zhuo Yiqing's expression of anger and regret disappeared, replaced with a meaningful smile. The next moment, the 4 appeared in the sky above the scarlet battlefield. What a dense scarlet aura. It looks like he's really about to come out. What a powerful aura. Even if he hasn't completely broken free of the seal. Just this aura alone is enough to catch up to Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi's cultivation is unfathomable, but his methods aren't as simple as that. Ever since he became famous, no one has been able to probe his limits. There's no lack of people from our branches among them. Is that old man really that powerful? He's stronger than you think. The outside world isn't just bragging when they say that he's the strongest human in the spirit world. Oh, there's a battle over there. Let's go take a look, Li Zhongshan said. The 4 arrived above the battlefield and looked down at the battle below. What a powerful physique. Who's that man? When did someone like him appear in the Eastern spirit world? Although his physique is outstanding, why is his aura so weak? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2288. Chen Zhao looked at the 4 figures passing by in the air. Chen Zhao's senses were restricted, but his vision was not. So, when they got close, Chen Zhao had already noticed them. The boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and the dresser looked down at Chen Zhao. Then they looked at Angie, Bo, Untu, Fi, and Orlando behind him. That woman is a pitiful person abandoned by the entire world, Li Zhongshan said with a smile. I only helped her a little. Everyone glanced at Li Zhongshan. They were already used to Li Zhongshan's bad habits. He liked to go around looking for special people. Then, after giving them a certain amount of help, he would collect high interest. For example, India couldn't cultivate her scarlet magic. Li Zhongshan had arranged for her to be transported here. She obtained what she'd been looking for so long here, the scarlet aura. India thought that she was lucky, but in reality, her fate was already controlled by someone. Li Zhongshan had controlled more than 100 people like India. Of course, most people were being controlled by Li Zhongshan without realizing it. They couldn't give Li Zhongshan anything in return. But as long as 1 or 2 succeeded, Li Zhongshan would receive a lot of rewards. Just then the ground shook violently. A huge cross-shaped gash began to spread. A figure rose from the huge crack. The body had closed eyes and a head of golden hair. It was filled with divinity. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. God! The body that rose from the crack was God. However, it was just a body now. It didn't have any soul or consciousness. Has it started? Li Zhongshan and the others looked at the body. Just then, red tentacles extended out from the crack. They were all formed by the scarlet aura. Only the red aura was far denser than the one on Delia's body. The red tentacles wrapped around God's body. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. That thing wanted to take over God's body. He couldn't let it happen before him. Chen Zhao moved and charged toward God's body. But the next moment, Chen Zhao's head hit an invisible wall, and he shot to the ground. This is a crucial time. Those who are not involved, please do not interfere with our plan. Boss raised his hand and said. Chen Zhao stood up awkwardly. The impact just now was not light. Almost all the power that Chen Zhao had used just now was reflected back to him. Chen Zhao looked at the 4 people in the air and then at the top of the cross-shaped crack. In other words, you are the masterminds behind this conspiracy? Was I also teleported here by you guys? After it comes out, it will be very hungry, so it needs a large amount of food to fill its stomach before it can communicate normally, Boss calmly said. And you? As food, you should act like food. Just as everyone's attention was on Qin Zhao, a beam of golden light descended from the sky without warning. Judgment's sword, evil, obliterate. Matthew held the blade of the sword that was filled with the power of glory, and the tip of the sword stabbed downward. An incomparably pure and holy pair of wings appeared behind Matthew. That divine power pierced through heaven and earth. But there was another figure faster than Matthew. Red Lotus moved and blocked in front of Matthew. Matthew's momentum was from above, so he could not turn at all. The sword was also indomitable. In an instant, the golden judgment sword pierced through Red Lotus' chest. But Red Lotus did not seem to be heavily injured. The judgment sword that pierced through her chest and back did not bring out blood, but strange flames. Matthew realized that something was wrong. He wanted to pull back his sword and retreat. But Red Lotus grabbed Matthew's arms, and Matthew felt a burning pain in his arms. The strange flames were spreading from Red Lotus palms to Matthew's arms. Since you're here, don't run. Matthew was shocked. The burning pain was unbearable. Matthew suddenly raised his sword and slashed upward. The judgment sword sliced from Red Lotus' chest to her head, almost cutting her upper body in half. But Red Lotus was still unharmed. Her upper body had actually split into 2 bodies and 2 heads. Do it! Qin Zhao shouted. Angie, Bo Untu, Fei, and Otto behind him moved at the same time. Boss glanced at Qin Zhao's group. I've been waiting for you. Boss slapped at them through the air. Boss's palm turned into a giant Buddha palm and smashed down at them. Qin Zhao suddenly sped up and disappeared in the air. Boss was slightly surprised. Qin Zhao's speed was beyond his expectations. In the blink of an eye, Qin Zhao had appeared behind Matthew and Red Lotus. Qin Zhao's fist pierced through Red Lotus' back. One of Red Lotus' heads turned 180 degrees. Idiot! As soon as Red Lotus finished speaking, she suddenly felt uncomfortable. Qin Zhao's fist that was embedded in Red Lotus' back was crazily devouring her flesh and energy with the mouth of gluttony. Yuke, save me! Red Lotus was shocked and cried out in alarm. So stupid! The dressing woman suddenly put away her mirror and kicked horizontally. Bang! Qin Zhao was sent flying. The Red Lotus fire on Red Lotus suddenly surged. All of you die! Red Lotus was furious. Seeing the Red Lotus fire approaching, Matthew immediately used holy light to protect his body. But the Red Lotus fire was far more powerful than he'd expected. The moment the Red Lotus fire touched his holy light, Matthew's holy light disintegrated. The Red Lotus fire spread to Matthew's body. Oh! Matthew let out a miserable scream as he fell to the ground, rolling around and wailing in pain. Qin Zhao saw Matthew's pitiful state from a distance. The dark lava immediately spread over and covered Matthew's body. Qin Zhao could feel the dark lava evaporating and dissipating, but he couldn't care so much right now. If he didn't, Matthew would definitely be burned to ashes by the Red Lotus fire. Thankfully, Qin Zhao saved him in time. The Red Lotus fire on Matthew was completely devoured. Matthew was sent to Qin Zhao by the dark lava. Right now, Matthew's original elegance and demeanor were long gone. Large areas of his body were burned. You're so pitiful, Qin Zhao couldn't help but say sarcastically. But I feel much better about you now. Matthew looked at Qin Zhao weakly. At least, I'm not dead, right? Thank you. Why do you feel much better about me now? You're more handsome than me now. You're not dead yet, but you'll die soon. The furious Red Lotus appeared above Qin Zhao and Matthew. Chapter 2289. Qin Zhao suddenly lifted his right arm. A ball of equally furious and terrifying Red Lotus fire burst out. Ah! Red Lotus let out a miserable cry and directly fell from the sky. Qin Zhao stared at Lotus in shock. He didn't expect this move to be so effective. Lotus's body had been burning with red lotus fire. Qin Zhao thought that she was immune to it. He didn't expect that he could absorb her red lotus fire through the mouth of gluttony and reflect it back. It had such an unexpected effect. See, I didn't expect to get revenge for you so soon. Matthew smiled bitterly at Qin Zhao. He also didn't expect Qin Zhao to defeat Lotus so easily. But you don't have time to relax yet. Matthew lay on the ground and looked at the two enemies coming from above Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao looked up at the boss and the dressed-up woman. The boss looked at Lotus on the ground with a terrible expression. When he looked at Qin Zhao, anger shot out of his eyes. Looks like I underestimated you. The dressed-up woman's aura grew stronger. She was clearly ready for battle. I haven't seen Lotus this miserable in a long time. Just then, Li Zhongshan said from the distance, "Boss, this guy's life is too tough. I can't touch him. Don't be careless." Good. Very good. Light shot out of the boss's eyes. Yellow ghost, freeze. At that moment, Qin Zhao felt like his body was filled with lead. Every movement he made was extremely heavy. At the same time, the dressed-up woman's skin turned dark gold. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. This was very similar to his own moves. He could fuse elements into his body. Just as Qin Zhao was shocked, the dressed-up woman's attack came. Fast. It was indescribably fast. Everyone's eyes could only catch a glimpse of a golden light flashing past. The next moment, there was an explosion from Qin Zhao's chest, and he was sent flying. The golden light sped up again, following Qin Zhao's path of flight with thousands of attacks. Boom, boom, boom. The continuous attacks blasted Qin Zhao into the crack in the ground. In the end, the woman kicked heavily, and Qin Zhao was smashed into the lava in the crack. Phew! Only then did the dressed-up woman stop, and a cloud of steam-like smoke came out from her back. The gold on her body receded, and the woman took out the vanity mirror again, as if she had just done something inconspicuous. The makeup has all fallen off. The woman began to touch up her makeup as if there was no one else around. Matthew was very sad to see Qin Zhao fall into the lava. At this moment, the red tentacles, not far away, had completely wrapped around God's body. Following that, the red tentacles began to disintegrate into scarlet gas before drilling into the God's body. Ahu! Ahu! The God's body began to breathe heavily. The next moment, the God's body suddenly opened its eyes. It was a pair of scarlet pupils. However, his entire body rippled with an imposing aura. A golden wheel of light formed behind the head of the God's body. The body raised its palm and observed it carefully. Is this the body of a god? What a terrifying monster! The red devil had completely taken over this body. He was also called a monster by the world. But in the mouth of this monster, God was also a monstrous existence. Even though God had already died and only left behind a body, it still made him gasp in amazement. "Greetings, Your Excellency, Edalu." Boss slowly landed in front of the red demon and called him by his real name. The red devil was judged by the church to be a demon who would bring disaster to the world. However, few people knew his identity. He wasn't a pure demon. He had once been a member of the church, and a high-level one at that. He had lost a power struggle related to the church's pope. This caused him to switch to the evil camp. He opened the church's dungeon and released all the evil creatures and demons that had been imprisoned. Every evil creature he released had to hand over a drop of essence blood and be enslaved by him. Through absorbing the essence blood, he transformed himself into an indescribable monster. He also triggered the church's first crusade. The red devil glanced at Boss. "I've long given up on my human name." "Then, do you need me to call you the Red Devil?" "You can also be the Scarlet God," the Red Devil said matter-of-factly. The Red Devil said matter-of-factly, "I like working with you Easterners. Even if it's a vow from 1,000 years ago, you still abide by it and carry it out to the end. Boss had a faint smile on his face. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your vow, Scarlet God. I'm hungry, the Red Devil said. I've prepared a sumptuous banquet for you, Boss said calmly. The Red Devil looked at Matthew and couldn't help but smile. He licked his lips. Then he looked at Angie, Bo, Unto, Fee, and Alterando. The quality is excellent, but the quantity is a little low. The Red Devil's hatred towards the church was obvious. You can take a look at the entire battlefield. The Red Devil abruptly released his perception. In an instant, the entire scarlet battlefield fell into his range of senses. However, the Red Devil's gaze fell on the crack. What's inside? It was unclear if the Red Devil was talking to himself or asking Boss. It's just a roasted corpse, Boss said calmly. Suddenly, magma surged out of the crack without any warning. It shot hundreds of meters into the sky. Everyone was startled by this sudden scene. A figure walked out of the erupting magma. Huh, he's not dead? Boss and the dresser were both shocked. Matthew and the others were naturally overjoyed. They also didn't expect Chen Zhao to still be alive. They didn't understand why Chen Zhao wasn't dead. But this wasn't important anymore. As long as he wasn't dead, it was more important than anything else. The dresser put away her vanity mirror again. When she looked at Chen Zhao, her eyes were filled with anger. So what if he's not dead? If I can defeat you once, I can defeat you again. With that, the dresser used the same trick again. Her body was covered in a layer of dark gold. It was that unparalleled speed again. Crack! But when the dresser appeared again, she realized that Chen Zhao had already lifted her upside down. One of her legs was firmly held by Chen Zhao. It was clearly twisted. Ah! The dresser didn't understand. Everyone didn't understand what had happened. But this result really happened. Caught you. Chapter 2290. Let go. Let go. The woman was both shocked and furious. Enduring the pain, she kicked Chen Zhao from the bottom with her other foot. But Chen Zhao also grabbed her other foot. Chen Zhao didn't go easy on her at all. He broke it right away. Ah! Chen Zhao casually threw the woman to the ground. The woman scratched the ground with both hands, trying to escape from Chen Zhao. Suddenly, a golden beam of light shot toward Chen Zhao without any warning. The light landed on Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was sent flying again. Chen Zhao didn't know how many times he'd been hit today. Anyway, ever since he'd entered the red battlefield, it seemed like anyone could hit him once or twice. Matthew watched as Chen Zhao stood up again. It was unexpected, but also within expectations. He didn't know how many times Chen Zhao had been hit today. But no matter what kind of attack it was, no matter how many times Chen Zhao was hit, he could always stand up again. He really doubted if Chen Zhao's body was made of iron. He knew that Chen Zhao was an enhancer, and the body of an enhancer would definitely be much stronger than that of other spiritualists. But the few times Chen Zhao had been hit by were all extremely powerful attacks. Basically, he would lose half his life if he was hit by one of these attacks. But Chen Zhao could stand up unscathed every time. Just how strong was his physical body? Chen Zhao looked at the red demon. The body you're in seems to be worth a lot. The red demon looked at Chen Zhao. It belongs to me now. I like it. Give it to me, Chen Zhao said confidently. It was as if the red demon had to give it up just because he said that. Matthew's face was heavy and worried. The red demon and the body of a god. How terrifying would he become? Matthew didn't dare to imagine. And now, Chen Zhao was trying to anger the red demon. To Matthew, this was no different from suicide. There were still strong enemies around, not to mention the red demon. Chen Zhao might not even be able to beat the others. Just then, Indilia came to the red demon's side. As the red demon was unsealed, Indilia's power increased in all aspects. Her hatred for Chen Zhao had also reached its peak. The red demon had a disdainful smile. Clearly, He hadn't taken Chen Zhao seriously yet. The red demon pointed at the heavily injured red lotus on the ground. A golden light mixed with a wisp of scarlet landed on the dressing woman. The woman's legs were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, the woman stood up again. Then, the Red Devil used the same method to heal Red Lotus. The burns on Red Lotus' body receded, and she regained her former glory. However, the Red Lotus fire on her body burned even brighter. It was a flame that contained her anger and hatred. "You must first defeat them," the Red Demon said with a smile. "They're just a bunch of losers. Do you expect them to buy time for you? To buy time for you? You said I'm stalling for time?" The Red Devil was a little angry. "Kill him." "Of course. It's our duty." The boss nodded and turned to look at Chen Zhao. "Can you stop struggling? Let us end this farce happily." Matthew walked over to Chen Zhao with difficulty. There were still large areas of burns on his body. However, he still came to Chen Zhao's side, planning to use his last bit of power to fight alongside Chen Zhao. "Matthew, don't come over and be my burden. Go and be a quiet spectator." Matthew smiled bitterly. "I still have the strength to fight." He didn't think that Chen Zhao could win alone. Even Zhang Tianyi probably wouldn't have a chance of winning in this situation. A demon that had taken over a god's body, and this demon couldn't be killed. This kind of combination was already a hopeless combination. There was also a group of mysterious but extremely powerful spiritualists. He couldn't think of any way that Chen Zhao could win. Chen Zhao also revealed a serious expression. "Okay, if I really lie down, you can come and take over. Just be a patient for now. Don't push it. You'll die together." Red Lotus suddenly launched an attack. A flaming nova erupted from her body. Right now, Red Lotus was stronger and angrier than ever before. The dark lava blocked the flaming nova and wrapped around Chen Zhao and Matthew. However, the flames clearly countered the dark lava. This was also something that had never happened before. The dark lava was evaporating under the heat of the Red Lotus fire. Thankfully, Chen Zhao had a large amount of dark lava. After the flaming nova dissipated, the dark lava gradually retreated too. "Matthew, don't be a hindrance, okay?" Matthew's face was bright red. This was the first time he'd been called a hindrance. But it was the truth. Although he wanted to help, he couldn't even block one of the enemy's moves. But he couldn't even block half a move from the enemy, not to mention helping Chen Zhao. Suddenly, the woman also attacked. Her skin turned darker and had a metallic sheen. Her skin became darker and had a metallic luster to it. She didn't hold back at all. She didn't hold back at all. She'd already suffered at Chen Zhao's hands. She knew that if she didn't use all her power, she would lie down soon. This unconventional speed and power forced Chen Zhao to use even more power. That line, breakthrough. However, what followed was an invisible force that descended from the void. It landed on Chen Zhao's head. Boom! But Chen Zhao was prepared this time. The ground cracked and shattered. Chen Zhao stood upright. The woman's attack had arrived too. Chen Zhao punched, and the woman was sent flying. "Green robe, yellow demon, freeze!" The boss roared. But this time he realized that the freeze curse that had been so easy last time was actually very difficult. Chen Zhao paused. Once again he realized that his limbs felt like lead. He couldn't move. Moreover, the worldly power fell again. Huh. Chen Zhao roared and his power increased again. The worldly power also increased again. Another wave of majestic power fell from the sky. Rumble, amidst the smoke, Chen Zhao still didn't move. Boss spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was slightly pale. How is this possible? Boss, his fate has increased. This guy is too terrifying. Li Zhongshan yelled. All techniques, return to one. Chen Zhao increased his power again. Similarly, the worldly power increased again. Boom, boom, boom. Wave after wave of majestic power fell from the sky. It wasn't enough. This bit of power wasn't enough to fight against the worldly power. Then I'll strengthen it again. This time, Chen Zhao fought against the worldly power. Dark assimilation. Chen Zhao's power increased exponentially again. Wasn't it enough? I have power. His power doubled. Right now, the entire scarlet battlefield was shaking violently. Everyone on the ground couldn't stand steadily. Chapter 2291. Chen Zhao kept fighting against the power of heaven and earth. It wasn't a good feeling. However much Chen Zhao's power increased, the power of heaven and earth would increase accordingly. On the other hand, the attacks from the surrounding people were almost negligible. The huge force landed on Chen Zhao's head and then spread out from his body. The ground kept shaking violently. It wasn't just the scarlet battlefield that was shaking. Even the wasteland bazaar above the battlefield felt the tremors. The entire wasteland bazaar was shaking violently. The red demon's expression froze. He could feel the terrifying power emanating from Chen Zhao. It was power that wasn't below his. Chen Zhao also seemed to be fighting against an invisible enemy. Of course, the red demon wouldn't talk about chivalry with him. He wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. The red demon spread his arms, and countless spheres appeared in the air around him. The spheres were like suns, shining with golden light. Go to hell! All of the golden balls released a golden ray in an instant. All the rays were aimed at Chen Zhao in the center. Instantly, Chen Zhao was surrounded by the golden rays. There was no way to avoid the countless rays. Everyone couldn't open their eyes because of the piercing golden light. The golden light only lasted for about a second. However, everyone's vision only recovered after a dozen seconds. Matthew was even more anxious. He was the first to recover his vision. After all, his holy light magic was very similar to the red demon's attack to a large extent. They were all so dazzling and resplendent in gold and jade. So he was more or less immune to the gold. Or rather, he was more or less adapted to it. He saw Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was still standing there, but his entire body was covered in blood. His chest and back were covered in countless bloody holes. Seeing Chen Zhao's heavy injuries, Delia was overjoyed. She charged at Chen Zhao. Watch out! Matthew panicked. He climbed up with difficulty, but before he could take 2 steps, he fell to the ground again. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that half of Delia's body was leaning back. Chen Zhao's chest heaved. The wounds all over his body brought him intense pain. Chen Zhao's eyes were fierce as he scanned all the enemies present. All of you will die! Chen Zhao roared. Arrogant! You don't even know that you're about to die. The woman suddenly launched an attack. The woman no longer held back. Her speed was so fast that even she couldn't react. Of course, as long as it was a straight line of attack, there would be no problem. But when she stopped, she looked down and saw that her right arm and shoulder were gone. She turned around and saw Chen Zhao's back facing her. He was holding her missing arm. She also discovered that Chen Zhao's arm also had a metallic glow, just like hers. The metallic luster slowly spread throughout his body. Giant spirit divinization. Chen Zhao's body started growing bigger, and gold started covering his entire body. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, Chen Zhao's power increased by leaps and bounds again. The earth trembled even more violently. Those who could fly basically flew into the sky. Those who couldn't fly couldn't even stand. Matthew and the others who were seriously injured were in even more pain from the tremors. Li Zhongshan's expression changed. He could feel the terrifying aura from Chen Zhao. Now he finally understood why Zhang Tianyi hadn't teleported in, but Chen Zhao had. One of the conditions for Zhuai Yiqing's teleportation was to limit one's strength. If one wasn't strong enough, they couldn't activate the teleportation. But Chen Zhao had clearly reached Zhang Tianyi's level. In fact, what he was displaying now was even more terrifying. Is this Chen Zhao's aura? Where is he? Is he releasing his power with all his might? Bifla saw that the entire wasteland market was falling apart. The terrifying power from the bottom to the top was constantly wreaking havoc in this place. The mirror image of the huge buildings was collapsing, the streets were cracking, and some places even had large holes in the ground. In an environment like this, casualties were unavoidable. Judging from the scale of the disaster, the casualties would probably not be small. As a newly advanced Shangqing realm cultivator, Bifla could clearly feel how powerful this power was. His own magic power was not on the same level at all. Of course, Bifla was also clear about his own position. In his opinion, Chen Zhao was a veteran Shangqing expert. It was normal for him to have a gap between them. After the Shangqing realm, the difference between each small realm could be several times or even dozens of times. Of course, knowing was one thing, but Bifla was still shocked by this aura. What's happening? Damn. Seeing that his lab was falling apart, Wendy's face was filled with shock and anger. Zhang Tianyi strolled to the door with Kelly and Ivory. Wendy, it looks like this place is going to be destroyed. Let's go. Celestial Master Zhang, what's going on? Is it because the seal has been released? I don't know, but this shaking isn't because of the seal being released. Maybe it's related, but it's not caused by the thing in the seal. Then who did it? Damn, if this keeps shaking, the entire wasteland market will be destroyed. Wendy and Zhang Tianyi walked out of the building with Kelly and Ivory. The building collapsed. Kelly and Ivory looked at the apocalyptic scene before them. The ground was cracking. The buildings before them were collapsing one after another. Celestial Master, is this really man-made? Kelly asked in fear. Zhang Tianyi nodded silently. Yes, and you know that person. You mean Qin? Yes, it seems like he's in big trouble. He actually used this much power. Zhang Tianyi looked up at the sky. Something seemed to be brewing in the dusky sky. Suddenly, an incomparably huge crack appeared in the ground. Kelly stepped on nothing and suddenly felt weightless. The next moment, Kelly let out a shrill scream, and her whole body fell down. Zhang Tianyi caught Kelly. Be careful. You're dead if you fall from here. Suddenly, a ring exploded in the sky. Then, a pillar of light descended from the sky. Rather than a pillar of light, it was more like a lightning pillar. The lightning pillar was like a skyscraper that connected the sky and the earth. Zhang Tianyi's eyes widened, his face filled with shock. The beam of light was not very far away from him, and he could feel the power contained in the lightning beam. But what shocked him more was what the lightning pillar represented. It was a legendary scene, a heavenly tribulation. Chapter 2292. In the scarlet battlefield, when everyone saw the rock layer above their heads being torn apart, everyone thought that it was a way out. But a terrifying pillar of light descended from the sky. It hit Chen Zhao's body directly. The terrifying impact forced everyone to retreat in an instant. What Chen Zhao felt was thousands of times worse than the others. Chen Zhao felt the entire world pressing down on him. Even Chen Zhao's 10,000 techniques returned to one. Even Chen Zhao's dark assimilation, even his eye of power and mighty spirit form, couldn't resist the immense pressure. The lightning contained in the pillar of light was ineffective against Chen Zhao. But what truly made Chen Zhao feel pain was the seemingly solid pressure. He couldn't stop it. He really couldn't. Even though Chen Zhao possessed billions of tons of power, it seemed so insignificant before the might of the world. Li Zhongshan looked at the pillar of light that pierced through the sky. Boss, we don't need to do anything. That guy is about to die. His fate is continuously weakening, Li Zhongshan said. The boss heaved a long sigh of relief. He had to admit that Chen Zhao gave him a lot of pressure. Even if the four of them worked together, they might not be able to defeat that guy. But Chen Zhao's thoughts were extremely clear, unprecedentedly clear. Chen Zhao's heart skipped a beat. This power definitely couldn't be blocked. Even Zhang Tianyi would be crushed by this power. Then he'd make this power his. Chun Zhao suddenly deactivated mighty spirit form. Instead, he used the same method to forcefully absorb this power. The basic principle of mighty spirit form was to absorb the spiritual qi in the world. The effects of mighty spirit form would increase according to how much spiritual qi one's body could withstand. Chun Zhao's current method was only a temporary solution. Right now, he had no choice but to be crushed by the power of the heavens and earth. He could either be crushed by the power of the world or forcefully steal this power and make it his own. Of course, this was also very risky. This was a power that Qin Zhao had never come into contact with before. He didn't know the characteristics of this power at all. It was like a person running into a factory and stuffing raw materials into their mouth. Whether the raw material was edible or poisonous, no one could be sure. Of course, the cultivation system in the spiritual world was more complicated. If an external energy enters the body, can it create this energy? For example, Chun Zhao had to expel his current energy from his body in order for the worldly power to enter his body. However, after the power of heaven and earth entered his body, would his body be able to produce energy of the same quality? If he couldn't create energy of the same quality, no matter how much he absorbed or how much energy he had, he would run out one day. If his body could produce the same amount of energy, he would be able to solve his worries. However, this wasn't a difficult choice for Qin Zhao. It was a good choice between survival and death. Qin Zhao absorbed the energy into his body. Instantly, Qin Zhao felt a sharp pain. This energy was simply too violent. It was as if it wanted to destroy everything. All the cells seemed to be destroyed by this force. But Qin Zhao's huge life force also started running wildly and being consumed. Qin Zhao's life force was pouring out wildly. Once Qin Zhao's life force was used up, what awaited him was death. Suddenly, the evolution system in his body changed again. Qin Zhao saw it. He saw it in his body. He could see that every cell in his body was changing. The energy that entered his body was being cut into countless individuals. Then, the cells in his body started absorbing the energy in a regular pattern. Gradually, Qin Zhao realized that the pain disappeared. It was replaced by an empty stomach. Hunger. Qin Zhao realized that he actually developed an appetite for the power of heaven and earth that landed on his body. Qin Zhao started devouring the power of heaven and earth like crazy. The cells in his body continued to evolve and adapt to the power of heaven and earth. Suddenly, Li Zhongshan's expression changed. What's wrong? What happened? He didn't die. His fate is strengthening. Didn't die? How is that possible? How could he survive that kind of impact? The pillar of light was weakening. It was clearly weakening. But in the pillar of light, another figure was appearing. Qin Zhao felt something completely different from the Jin state. While Qin Zhao was still immersed in his different Jin forms, a voice suddenly rang out. Countless golden lights shot toward Qin Zhao again. Qin Zhao's heart jumped. His body suddenly turned pure white. In an instant, countless rays of golden light pierced through his body. Energy transformation. Qin Zhao realized that he could actually turn into energy. Seeing Qin Zhao's energy form, the red demon couldn't help but frown. Qin Zhao gave him a very bad feeling. Very, very bad. Qin Zhao also stopped studying his new form and turned to look at the red demon. In an instant, Qin Zhao turned into a beam of light and reformed his real body in front of the red demon. Qin Zhao ignored the red demon. Instead, he looked back at where he had been just now. Just now, he was about 1,000 meters away from where he was now, but he actually moved so far away in an instant. This made Qin Zhao very curious about his speed just now. It definitely wasn't the speed of light, but it was definitely faster than his original speed. Qin Zhao's fastest speed could reach Mach 40. He could jump more than 10 kilometers in a second. This was pretty much the fastest flying speed of current technology. But in that instant, Qin Zhao felt that his speed after turning into energy had clearly increased. But this was understandable. After all, after the body turned into energy, its mass would definitely be infinitely close to zero. The smaller the mass, the faster the body would move after being affected by force. You still dare to be distracted when facing me? The red demon suddenly grabbed at Chen Zhao. Not only had Chen Zhao's speed increased, but his reaction speed had also reached a terrifying level. The moment the red demon attacked, Chen Zhao also attacked. The moment the red demon grabbed Chen Zhao, he immediately turned into energy. The red demon's attack missed, but Chen Zhao's attack came as expected. Chen Zhao's palm slapped the red demon's face. Then, the moment the red demon was sent flying, his face looked like it had been burned. The red demon stood up again. Chen Zhao's attack hadn't caused any actual damage to him. The burn on his face quickly disappeared too. Plus, this body wasn't his to begin with, so he didn't feel any pain. But the red demon felt a strong threat. Chapter 2293. Matthew and the others were dumbfounded, although he, Angie, and the others were all in a sorry state. But now, there seemed to be a chance to turn the tables. Chen Zhao rubbed his palm. He turned to look at Matthew, who was not far away. We've hit the bottom. I've hit the bottom. Matthew smiled bitterly. What's your situation now? Looks like I've broken through. Chen Zhao felt the information from every cell. Every cell carried a huge amount of energy. From a biological perspective, Chen Zhao had already transformed from a human to a non-human. As long as Chen Zhao's yin-yang inner core released immortal power, the cells would immediately absorb it and turn it into a physical form. As long as Chen Zhao put away his immortal power, his cells would immediately turn into energy. This was also why Chen Zhao switched between his energy form and his physical form. Now that Chen Zhao was no longer restrained, he felt both physically and mentally relaxed. A beam of white light shot out of Chen Zhao's eyes and shot toward the red demon. Rumble! A huge explosion occurred on the red demon's body. Chen, are you trying to become a Superman? However, Superman has a red ray. Why don't you learn a death ray? Matthew teased. Chen Zhao rubbed his forehead. The white light that shot out of his eyes wasn't his own attack. It was purely an accident. However, he had to admit that he was quite satisfied with the attack just now. It was powerful and cool enough. After the cigarette was extinguished, the red devil's chest caved in, and there was a trail of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although he was now in the body of a god, he did not have the glory of a god. There were only ferocious gazes and terrifying thoughts that made one's hair stand up. I admit that you are powerful. The red devil grinned. Chen Zhao didn't pay attention to the red demon. Instead, he looked at his palm. Her originally white palm was first covered in a layer of black, then a layer of gold. Chen Zhao tried to use dark assimilation and Jin divinization on the basis of the energy form. The effect seemed pretty good. Chen Zhao had been worried whether this new energy could coexist with dark assimilation and Jin divinization. Now, it seemed that his worries were unnecessary. However, it was different from dark assimilation and Jin divinization. This form of energy was permanent. It was different from dark assimilation and Jin divinization. As long as he wanted to, he could maintain his energy form forever. Chen Zhao could switch between physical and energy forms at will. In his energy form, Chen Zhao could also use dark assimilation and Jin form. There was no conflict between the three. He also made a new discovery. Originally, Chen Zhao had thought that after covering his energy form with dark assimilation and Jin state, he would be able to use his strongest power without being attacked by the enemy. This was the most ideal state. But what Chen Zhao didn't expect was that when he used dark assimilation and mighty divinity in this form, the energy would stick to his body. The red demon was annoyed because Chen Zhao had ignored him again. Red demon raised his arms high, and a terrifying red fireball gathered above his head. The huge fireball was like the sun, with a diameter of more than 3 kilometers. The entire scarlet battlefield was shrouded in the terror of that huge fireball. Even Chun Zhao was frightened by the terrifying super fireball. If this thing fell to the ground, he might not die, but everyone on the scarlet battlefield and even in the wasteland market above would die. But how was he going to block such a huge and terrifying fireball? After thinking about it, Chun Zhao still decided to try with dark lava. This was the first time Chun Zhao had no confidence at all. The energy contained in this super fireball was too great. Go to hell! The red demon suddenly pushed the super fireball. Chun Zhao could dodge it. The super fireball wasn't slow, but compared to Chun Zhao, it was like an ant crawling. But Chun Zhao couldn't dodge it. He had no choice. When the super fireball reached Chun Zhao felt even more deeply the size of the super fireball and his own insignificance. Suddenly, dark lava burst out of Chun Zhao's palms. In an instant, a huge black cloth covered the super fireball. Suddenly, dark magma burst out of Chun Zhao's palms. In an instant, the stars turned into a huge black cloth, covering the super fireball. Seeing that his attack was blocked, the red demon sneered. When the red devil saw that his attack had been blocked, he sneered. "I've been waiting for this move of yours." The red demon shouted, "Perish!" Before Chun Zhao could catch his breath, he felt the super fireball explode inside the dark lava. The black curtain formed by the dark lava suddenly expanded, about to burst at any moment. Chun Zhao's expression changed. The terrifying energy of the super fireball was enough to destroy everything here. But now that it was compressed, the energy that exploded again would be even more terrifying. Dark assimilation. Chun Zhao had no choice. He could either let the destructive energy from the super fireball explode pour out, or he could think of a way to transfer the energy. Chun Zhao thought of this method to let himself bear the full force of this energy. The instant Chun Zhao used dark assimilation, the dark lava fused into his body. At the same time, it also brought the destructive energy into Chun Zhao's body. But to his surprise, Chun Zhao's eyes widened. The energy was huge, but it didn't make Chun Zhao feel very uncomfortable. Instead, it gave Chun Zhao a sense of satisfaction and fullness. Also, this energy was much weaker than the power of heaven and earth from before. Burp! Chun Zhao burped. Everyone was dumbfounded. They stared at Chun Zhao in shock. That's it. Was there a mistake somewhere? But just then, Chun Zhao's body changed again. Every cell in Chun Zhao's body seemed to be ignited. But this time, the cells didn't die because of the destructive power. They only ignited Chun Zhao's body. Chun Zhao was stunned. It seemed that the cells were digesting the energy. This time, Chun Zhao's body functions didn't change. He didn't evolve either. In other words, this was an acceptable state for his body. Chun Zhao started guessing. The explosive energy from the super fireball should be fire energy. After absorbing the fire energy, his body's energy form also turned into fire. If he absorbed energy of other elements, would it also turn into the corresponding energy form? Chun Zhao looked at the red demon and suddenly pounced at him. Right now, Chun Zhao was extremely fast. The red demon's reaction was also very fast, but speed wasn't his strong point. He was barely able to put up a defensive stance. Chapter 2294. Bang! There was a deep sound. Chun Zhao threw a punch. The flames on his fist weren't very effective against the red demon. After all, the energy was his to begin with. But Chun Zhao's power wasn't something he could block. Whether it was the red demon himself or the god's body he'd taken over, they weren't known for their strength. After all, Chun Zhao had killed the god of strength before, and he'd done it with pure strength, not to mention the sun god. The red demon was sent flying. His body ignited from the friction in the air and fell like a meteor. The ground cracked and flames shot into the sky. This time, the red demon stood up with some difficulty. Chun Zhao's punch had caused great damage to the god's body. What was even more terrifying was the energy on his fist. It wasn't the flames on his fist, but the energy hidden under the flames. That energy had caused a certain amount of damage to his soul. If the god's body hadn't blocked most of the damage for him, this punch would probably have destroyed his soul. The red devil turned pale with fright. He'd never seen such a monster-like human before. In the era when he'd been sealed, if there had been someone who could fight him or kill him, they wouldn't have spent so much effort to seal him. In order to seal him, they'd even used the body of a noble god to suppress him. He'd even boldly plotted against this god's body. It was because he was confident that no one could kill him. Even being sealed in the end was part of his plan. However, after being sealed for 1,000 years, he'd successfully taken over the god's body. He didn't expect to encounter such a terrifying enemy right after coming out of the seal. The god's body had already been severely damaged, but the red demon still used the scarlet chi to repair the damaged body. After all, the red demon wasn't a god. His power wasn't enough to repair the god's body. Therefore, the parts that were repaired with the scarlet chi were clearly distorted and mutated. Chun Zhao could clearly feel that the flame energy had decreased greatly after that blow. It was different from the other energies in Chun Zhao's body. Chun Zhao's yin and yang qi could be obtained by absorbing cosmic rays from the sky every day and then converted for cultivation. Immortal qi was Chun Zhao's most basic source of power. It was obtained from the yin and yang inner elixir in his body. There was also the energy that was converted from absorbing the world energy. After absorbing the energy, Chun Zhao's body evolved. Not only could the cells store this energy, but they could also generate this energy on their own. However, fire energy was different. Fire energy was completely external. The fire energy was more like stale food. After eating it, Chun Zhao had this special energy temporarily, but it wasn't absolute possession and acquisition. On the outskirts of the battlefield, boss Li Zhongshan, as well as the heavily injured Red Lotus and the dresser woman, could all see the situation in the middle of the battlefield. They didn't expect that a nobody would be able to defeat him. Their partner, an ancient devil, couldn't even fight back. The Red Devil was definitely not an ordinary creature. He was an existence that brought terror and turmoil to medieval Europe, obtaining the title of devil as a human. The Red Devil was definitely the first. The Red Devil that had ravaged the European continent for more than 100 years. But now he was beaten up by a stranger. This made them somewhat unable to accept this result. Their cooperation with the Red Devil was the hard work of several generations over the centuries. It wasn't for this result. "Boss, let's go," Li Zhongshan said in an extremely calm tone. "It's not worth sacrificing all of us for the Red Devil." Of course, Boss knew this. As long as they were alive, there was still a chance. But he just couldn't accept it. All the arrangements, the hard work of several generations over the centuries. But because of such an unexpected factor, an outsider, everything had gone to waste. All their blood, sweat, and tears had gone down the drain. How could he accept it? "Boss, let's go while that guy's attention isn't on us," Li Zhongshan said. Right now, Chun Zhao's attention wasn't just on them. Most of his attention wasn't even on the Red Devil. He was still studying the changes in his body. Inside and outside the battlefield, there was a strange silence. Everyone stared at Chun Zhao. They were waiting for his next move. Chun Zhao had an idea. He condensed the energy in his palm. As expected, the energy gathered into an energy ball. Chun Zhao looked at the energy ball in his hand and then looked for the Red Devil. He tossed it casually. The Red Devil had suffered once, so he was already prepared for Chun Zhao's next move. A golden energy barrier blocked the Red Devil's path. But the moment the energy ball touched the barrier, it didn't stop. It pierced through the barrier. The barrier didn't collapse. The energy ball only left a round hole in it. The Red Devil didn't expect the energy ball to be so terrifying. It actually pierced through the golden barrier. Boom! There was another terrifying explosion and a terrifying shockwave. Chun Zhao looked at the location of the explosion, confusion on his face. The power of that energy ball was indeed very strong. But Chen Zhao paid more attention to its characteristics. It seemed to have a strong penetrative ability against energy, and it could instantly explode against physical objects. As for power, it was shocking in other people's eyes. But to Chen Zhao it was only average. But in terms of consumption, it was also negligible. After a simple test, Chen Zhao roughly estimated his changes. In terms of power, Chen Zhao didn't increase much. But the increase in speed was Chen Zhao's biggest gain. Chen Zhao didn't have the exact data, but it was at least 3 times or more faster. Also, his body could turn into energy, which allowed him to nullify many attacks, especially physical attacks. This was especially true for physical attacks. In the past, Chen Zhao had mostly relied on his strong body to deal with physical attacks, but now he was immune to physical attacks. At the same time, Chen Zhao developed some energy attacks. But for now, these energy attacks didn't have an obvious increase in pure destructive power. Huh, you want to run? Chen Zhao realized that the Red Devil was planning to use the smoke from the explosion to escape. Chen Zhao immediately blocked the Red Devil's path. You can't go there. The Red Devil grabbed at Chen Zhao. The moment he grabbed Chen Zhao's arms, a scarlet aura surged toward him. Chapter 2295. The Red Demon could already feel it. There was a clear difference between him and Chen Zhao. Even with this god's body, he couldn't beat Chen Zhao. If he continued fighting, he would only die in an ugly way. But he knew that it was almost impossible for him to escape from Chen Zhao. At their level, their perception had already reached a terrifying level. Their auras were as eye-catching as light bulbs. It was even more impossible for him to escape from Chen Zhao. That was why the Red Demon had come up with such a risky move. That was to take over Chen Zhao's body. And if this plan succeeds, he could completely abandon this god's body. Chen Zhao's body was stronger than a god's body. Of course, as long as he obtained Chen Zhao's body, this god's body would be useless. But Chen Zhao was also waiting for this opportunity. Chen Zhao also grabbed the Red Demon. Looks like we have the same goal. Chen Zhao looked at the Red Demon. The Red Demon was shocked. He vaguely felt a trace of unease, but he didn't have time to think of a way out. He could only continue trying to use the red aura to invade Chen Zhao's body. But just then, dark lava spread out from Chen Zhao's palms that grabbed the Red Demon's shoulders. The dark lava started spreading above the Red Demon's neck, then his mouth, nose, and ears. The Red Demon was shocked to find that his red aura was useless against Chen Zhao. Meanwhile, Chen Zhao's dark lava was eating away at the god's body. Even his own scarlet energy was being nibbled away. Looks like we have the same bloodline, but your red aura can't compare to my dark lava. Chen Zhao grinned. Same bloodline. The Red Demon was shocked. He knew himself very well. In the beginning, he didn't have any demon bloodline. He was purely human. He just absorbed and fused with large amounts of demon blood. As for how many types of demon blood he had absorbed, he didn't know either. Also, he didn't know what kind of special demon bloodline there was. As for the final transformation and the process of turning into a red demon, he didn't know either. What he used was also ancient magic, combined with some of his own insights. Now, after being exposed by Chen Zhao, he finally understood his bloodline. Actually, Chen Zhao knew the effects of the demonic bloodline and the transformation process much better than the Red Demon. After all, Chen Zhao had personally guided the demonization of a few normal creatures. He had also done related research and experiments, although he did not know the specific situation of the Red Devil. But judging from the chaotic bloodline aura in his aura, it was clear that he had a very good chance of survival. He had obviously fused with the bloodline of other demons. Therefore, he could roughly analyze the formation process of the Red Devil. It was very likely that he had the bloodline of a king of wrath and then fused it with the bloodline of other demons. However, This fusion process was not pure, and there were too many impurities from other bloodlines. This caused his power to become very chaotic. Actually, Chen Zhao had used the same or similar method before. Chen Zhao had used dark lava to devour and fuse with other mutants and demons. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao's bloodline was given by Samuel himself. In terms of bloodline, Chen Zhao's was more advanced than the Red Demon's. It wasn't that the higher the grade of something, the better it was. However, when it came to bloodlines, the higher the grade, the better. The Red Demon was terrified. After trying to no avail, he realized that the red gas had no effect on Chen Zhao at all. He wanted to escape, but his body was firmly held in Chen Zhao's hands. He could not escape either. In the end, the Red Demon could only choose to leave the god's body. Large amounts of red gas spread out from the god's body and spread out wildly. The Red Demon tried to escape using this method. Don't even think about going anywhere. Seeing that the god's body had lost its resistance, Chen Zhao put it away. The dark lava enveloped the red gas. It was different from the red gas he had devoured from Delia. The Red Fiend's true form was countless times thicker than the scarlet aura surrounding Delia. This was the real nourishment pill. A terrified face appeared in the scarlet gas. He wanted to escape frantically, even splitting into a few parts as bait. But Chen Zhao did not care about all these tricks. He let the dark lava envelop him, forming an absolutely sealed space. "If you don't give me a way out, then we'll die together," the Red Demon roared. "If you can do it, then come." Soon, Chen Zhao realized what the Red Demon wanted to do. Self-destruct? That's meaningless to me. I want to devour your origin. It doesn't matter even if you self-destruct. The Red Demon heard Chen Zhao's words. Even if he knew that it was meaningless, he had nowhere to go. But he had no way out. The red gas was like a flammable gas. It ignited in this sealed and dark space. However, the Red Demon's self-destruction was not that kind of explosion. Instead, it instantly contracted all the red gas and turned it into a sphere. Then the sphere radiated billions of rays of light that spread in all directions. The sealed space enveloped by the dark lava was instantly penetrated from the inside, like a leaking bag. Chen Zhao pursed his lips, feeling that he had suffered a loss. The Red Demon's self-destruction did not hurt him. However, at least a quarter of the dark lava had been evaporated by the explosion. The red gas that Chen Zhao had devoured from the Red Demon could not make up for the loss at all. Chen Zhao sighed and looked up at the sky. Two pairs of eyes looked down from above as well. The two gazes were Bifla and Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao landed on the ground and looked at Matthew. Then he pulled Angie, Paolo, Fee, and Otranto to Matthew's side. "Looks like there's nothing here. I'm leaving. You're not bringing us up." Matthew complained, looking at Chen Zhao. "Someone's coming down to pick you up. I don't have to take responsibility. You're too irresponsible. I'm not your father." Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. "After this trial, let's drink together," Matthew said. "You should recover from your injuries first. I'm afraid you're going to be disfigured soon. There are many healing spells in our church. This kind of injury is nothing. Looks like my pity for you is unnecessary. I'm leaving. Goodbye." When Chen Zhao flew into the sky, he saw John Sr. fall from the crack. The two of them looked at each other and nodded as a greeting. Chapter 2296. As soon as Chen Zhao exited the crack, he saw a scene of devastation. The entire wasteland market had been destroyed. During the violent tremors and the battle between Chen Zhao and the Red Demon, the entire wasteland market had been reduced to ruins. Looking around, there wasn't a single intact building. Just then, two figures approached Chen Zhao from different directions. One was Bifla, and the other was Zhang Tianyi. "Chen Zhao." Zhang Tianyi arrived before Chen Zhao first. Bifla followed closely behind. When they arrived before Chen Zhao, they both stared at him. At the same time, they used their senses to check Chen Zhao's body condition. You're completely different now, Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. Your body has almost been reforged. It's as if you've been reborn in the legends. Baifla didn't understand as well as Zhang Tianyi, but he was also very interested in Qin Zhao. After all, Qin Zhao's current path was also the path he might walk in the future. I've changed a lot now. Normal people can't tell, but I can, Zhang Tianyi said. I've never thought that someone could walk before me, but it seems like you're half a step ahead of me. What realm am I in now? Still in Shangqing, Zhang Tianyi said. I thought I'd surpassed Shangqing. In ancient records, Shangqing is divided into spiritual movement, embryonic breathing, sitting death, and spiritual silence. You're in the last step of Shangqing, spiritual silence. What about after me? No, Zhang Tianyi said. Since ancient times, only a few people have reached Shangqing. For example, in our era, it's already a sign of prosperity for the spiritual world to have a few Shangqing cultivators in the same generation. As for your current cultivation, it's not an exaggeration to say that you're the first in history. No one has reached the later stages, so there's naturally no realm. If you want to improve, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Oh, can I be called the first person in history now? So I'm invincible now? Among humans, you should be invincible, Zhang Tianyi said. It's a pity that I don't have thousands of people worshipping me. If you want, I can arrange a way for you. I can even make your name resound through the entire spiritual world the next day. Forget it then. Let's find a place to sit. Zhang Tianyi said, I need to ask you how you felt when you went through the heavenly tribulation, as well as the entire process of transcending the tribulation. I think Baifla also wants to know. The three of them found the rooftop of a half-collapsed building. The three of them sat down cross-legged. After a moment of silence, Qin Zhao began to describe the entire process of his heavenly tribulation. There were also the psychological and physical changes before and after. In fact, only after Zhang Tianyi's explanation did Qin Zhao realize that he was experiencing a heavenly tribulation. Qin Zhao didn't keep it to himself. Qin Zhao also knew that the title of the most powerful person in the world, or even the most powerful person in all of history, was very clear. But at the same time, there were many unknown dangers. Without a guide, he could only rely on his own exploration. Who knew when he would go berserk? But if there were one or two fellow travelers, everyone would discuss and explore with each other. Then perhaps the road would be easier to follow. However, Qin Zhao's heavenly tribulation was definitely a coincidence. Logically speaking, Qin Zhao shouldn't be undergoing the tribulation. Qin Zhao wasn't weaker than Zhang Tianyi, but he was still weaker. If there was a heavenly tribulation, it should be Zhang Tianyi. But Qin Zhao did it first. There were many coincidences in the process. If Qin Zhao hadn't been transported to the Scarlet battlefield and sealed, then there wouldn't have been so many things later. Celestial Master Zhang, is that seal the key? According to what Qin Zhao said, can you use the seal to suppress it and then use it to trigger the heavenly tribulation? Can I do the same in the future? Baifla asked. Zhang Tianyi thought for a long while and shook his head. There are too many uncertain factors. For example, can I have Qin Zhao's ability to resist pressure? Another example is whether or not I can be like him, using the suppression of the seal to trigger the heavenly tribulation. Another example is whether or not I can withstand the heavenly tribulation after it descends. Also, can I be like him, absorbing the energy of the heavenly tribulation and turning it into my own? In other words, Qin Zhao's method isn't good. It's not, but it's worth studying, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, moreover, the three of us have different Daos, so there's no point in blindly imitating him. There's no need to copy his method of triggering the heavenly tribulation. Even if I were to trigger the heavenly tribulation right now, I probably wouldn't have complete confidence in passing it. However, Qin Zhao's experiences are truly priceless treasures for us. Now that you mention it, I think I should open a paid course. It should be good. Zhang Tianyi and Baifla couldn't help but roll their eyes. Even if Chen Zhao really opened a paid course for the heavenly tribulation, the number of spiritualists who could understand it could be counted on one hand. As for the people who could really use it, apart from Zhang Tianyi and Baifla, only 23rd generation Blood Mary would be useful. By the way, you guys said before that the appearance of a Shang-Qing realm expert in a few hundred years is already considered the peak of the spiritual world. But in this era, the three of us, 23rd generation Blood Mary and old John, who's close to Shang-Qing realm, far surpasses any era in the past. Does this count as a flourishing era? Usually, the flourishing era of the spiritual world appears in the middle or late stages of the spiritual chi tide. Our era is only in the middle or early stages of the spiritual chi tide. Based on the density of the spiritual chi in the world, it's far from the peak of the spiritual world. If there's no special reason, it can only be a coincidence that several Shang-Qing realm experts have appeared in the world at the same time. Please don't tell me there's some demon king that needs many experts to work together to suppress him. That's why there are so many experts in this era. It's always like that in movies and TV shows. Maybe that's you. Everyone was in a good mood. As for the catastrophic damage that Chen Zhao had indirectly caused, the three didn't seem to care at all. Chen Zhao didn't feel guilty at all. It wasn't because of his subjective reasons, anyway. Moreover, after the incident, Chen Zhao had actively reduced the damage. In terms of responsibility, Zhang Tianyi, as one of the people in charge, was definitely more responsible than him. Chapter 2297. Of course, this was just shirking the responsibility. But Chen Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and even Baifla, who was not involved, did not take it to heart. On one hand, it was because their own people were unharmed. On the other hand, it was because, in their minds, how could there be no casualties on the battlefield? In the previous disaster, after confirming that his sect of fire team was fine, Baifla helped Chen Zhao's team from the supernatural organization. So, the supernatural organization did not suffer any casualties. Then, the trial of the Battle of the Holy Glory was stopped, and the participants who survived this trial all obtained the right to advance. Actually, it was more like a new trial than an advancement. After all, there were too many unexpected factors in this trial, causing many accidents. In the end, there were even large-scale casualties. Of course, the organizers of the Battle of the Holy Glory would not say a new trial. They would say that everyone advanced. But advancing meant that they had to go through a new trial. If they all advanced, none of them advanced. But the participants of the Battle of the Holy Glory could not do anything. Even though some teams had good results and some had bad results, they had survived the disaster. However, due to special circumstances, good luck, or sufficient strength, they managed to survive the catastrophe. Chen Zhao, the instigator, had left the desolate market earlier. Chun Zhao was resting in the hotel room when someone knocked on the door. Chun Zhao lay on the sofa and video-called Fei Lai and his child. Glancing at the door, dark lava extended and opened it. Chun Zhao remembered the man in black outside. He should be the 23rd Blood Mary's attendant. Mr. Chin, Blood Mary wants to see you. Do you have time now? Wait, Chin Zhao said. I'm talking to my family. Okay, can I wait for you here? The man asked. Close the door first. Chen Zhao was not happy to let an outsider listen to his conversation with his family. Okay, I'll wait for you outside. The man did not reject or refute. He had only received orders to invite Chen Zhao. Whether Chen Zhao came or not, he could not be rude to Chen Zhao. Moreover, Blood Mary's tone was more cautious than last time. After the man closed the door, Chen Zhao continued chatting with Fei Lai. Little Jerlin and little Larissa were playing on Fei Lai's body, appearing in the camera from time to time. All right, you seem to have a guest. We'll talk when you're free. Little Larissa, don't pull my hair. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded and hung up. After Fei Lai hung up, she angrily slapped little Larissa's short hands. Don't pull Mommy's hair. Mommy just did it. Just then, the butler system's voice sounded. Miss Phelan, there's an unfamiliar visitor outside. According to the profile scan, the visitor lives at Mountain Town number 559. His name is Clive, and he's a youth teacher. Phelan was a bit surprised, but as a neighbor, she still asked the butler system to unlock the door. At the same time, she stood up to greet her neighbor. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. I'm Cliff. Cliff said, Please forgive my sudden visit. I used to be Dee Dee's teacher. I heard that Dee Dee was adopted by you and your husband, so I came to see Dee Dee. If it's convenient, can you let me see Dee Dee's current situation? Mr. Cliff, thank you for taking care of Dee Dee. Phelan smiled. Please come in and take a seat. Phelan could feel Cliff's kindness. Cliff knew that Phelan was rich, but he was still shocked when he entered the manor. However, he was still shocked when he entered the manor. The living room was also technologically and luxuriously decorated. The inside of the manor was like a huge park. As the saying goes, the life of the rich is beyond the imagination of the poor. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see a few children playing outside. It was obvious that the atmosphere of the family was quite good. Originally, Cliff had come to see if Dee Dee would be treated unfairly in the new family. Now he had more or less given up on the idea. A while later, Phelan called Dee Dee down. Cliff also felt completely relieved after seeing Didira's spirit and appearance. It seemed that she was doing well here. Hello, Mr. Cliff. Hi, Dee Dee. Cliff nodded with a smile. After helping them get 2 drinks, Phelan went out to the yard. After catching up with Dee Dee for a while, Cliff got a general idea of Dee Dee's current situation. He learned that Dee Dee and her siblings had all become orphans due to an accident in the family. After that, they had all been adopted. This was also the conclusion of the discussion between Chun, Zhao, Phelan, and the children. It was just that the supernatural part was slightly hidden. By the way, Mr. Chin isn't home? Uncle has a job overseas. He might be back in a few days. I see. Cliff nodded. Can Miss Phelan take care of you all by herself? If necessary, I can ask Amber to come and take care of you and your siblings. Thank you, but it's fine. I can take care of myself and my siblings for Aunt Phelan. Also, Uncle's assistant, Miss Portia, isn't here today. She usually comes to help. Well, all right then. If you need anything, you can contact me. Do you have my contact number? Yes, thank you, Mr. Cliff. Okay, I won't disturb you anymore. If you're free, you can visit Amber at my place. She misses you too. Auntie Phelan is busy arranging schools for us, so she's not free right now. After this, I'll visit you and Auntie Amber. Okay, say goodbye to Phelan for me. Okay. After Cliff left, Phelan came in. Dee Dee, how was your chat? Not bad, but Mr. Cliff seems much older than last time I saw him. Of course. After all, you haven't seen each other for a few years. Not that long. Last time, when Uncle and I went to the supermarket in town to buy Christmas presents, we saw him. It's so weird. It's been less than a month. Why do I feel like he's aged 10 years? Phelan thought about it. Cliff really did seem a bit haggard. Is he sick? I'm not sure, Auntie Phelan. I want to visit Mr. Cliff and his wife, Annie Amber, sometime. Is that okay? Of course, but you'd better prepare a gift. I'll go with you to the supermarket tomorrow. Chapter 2298. The next day, Didira and Phelan went to the supermarket to buy 2 gifts. One was a tie for Clive, and the other was a scarf for Ampa. Let's go here. Phelan and Didira found Clive's house. A row of white fences surrounded the yard. Inside was a white 2-story house. Didira pressed the doorbell. Just then, the curtains in the house opened, and someone peeked inside. Then, a woman ran out from the inside. You're Didira? Ampa quickly recognized Didira. Ms. Ampa, I'm Didira. I'm glad you still recognize me. I didn't expect you to be so old. Sorry, who's this? This is Auntie Phelan. Of course, she's my adoptive mother in name, Didira said with a smile. Hello, Miss Phalai. I'm Ampa. Hello, Ms. Ampa. Ms. Ampa, don't you know that we live in Mountain Town too? Didira realized that Ampa was very surprised to see her. Didn't Mr. Clive tell you? He went to see me yesterday. Huh? Does Clive know? Never mind. Maybe Mr. Clive was too busy and didn't tell you about it. Phalai smiled and patted Didira's back. Ms. Ampa, Auntie Phalai and I are giving this to you and Mr. Clive. Ampa accepted the gift, looking a bit flustered and embarrassed. Sorry, the house is a bit messy. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to come in. It's okay. We're just passing by and came to see you, Didira said considerately. Clive is in school right now and isn't home today. If it's okay, can you come this weekend? Or Clive and I can go over. Ampa looked at Didira nervously. She liked children and had a deep impression of Didira. For her, for every child she liked, she would fantasize about how great it would be if the child was hers. So Ampa was very happy that Didira came to see her. But there were some things in the house that she couldn't let them see. So Ampa was both happy and troubled. Of course, Phalai agreed for Didira. After all, Amber and Clive were not bad people. Although he didn't have much contact with them, he could tell that they weren't bad people. After exchanging contact information, Phalai left with Didira. Ampa stood in front of the door and watched Phalai and Didila's car drive away before he hurried back into the house. When Ampa returned to the room, he saw a large pot emitting green gas. Not bad, not bad. Ampa once again threw himself into the work of making magic potions. It was the same beach and the same umbrella. Chun and the 23rd generation blood, Mary, sat under the parasol and watched the tide come and go. The 23rd blood Mary was looking for Chin because she wanted to find out how Chun had gone through the heavenly tribulation. Even though Chin Chin had already told Baifla and Zhang Tiani about it, Chin Chun was still worried about Zhang Tiani. However, there were some details that Mary still wanted to ask Chin personally. She wasn't sure if she would be able to use these experiences in this life. However, to her, the heavenly tribulation that Chun had experienced was definitely a priceless treasure. Once she faced the same situation in the future, her chances of survival would greatly increase. Even if she couldn't use it herself, she could compile Chen's experience into a book and leave it for future generations to use. Regardless of the time, these contents would always play a role. I didn't expect you to be the first to break through, the 23rd generation Blood Mary said emotionally. The 23rd generation Blood Mary said emotionally, I thought it would be Zhang Tiani or at least me. I didn't break through. I'm still in the Shangqing state. At least that's what old Zhang said. We're both in the Shangqing state, but we're not on the same level. In terms of combat power, I'm indeed slightly higher, but there's no qualitative difference between us. It's like the difference between the ultimate transformation state and the Shangqing state. Taking the upper clarity realm as an example, the upper clarity realm is divided into 4 small realms: spiritual formation, embryonic breathing, sitting death, and spiritual solitude. You, Celestial Master Zhang, me and Baifla are in the 4 small realms. You are in the spiritual solitude realm. Celestial Master Zhang is in the sitting death realm. I am in the embryonic breathing realm, and Baifla is in the spiritual formation realm. The first 3 small realms can actually be considered as the same level. Although there is a difference in our combat power, there is no difference in essence. Spiritual solitude realm is the most special level. It is completely different from the previous 3 small realms. What's different? I don't know, but I can feel that you're different. It's not that you're stronger or that you're more powerful. It's purely my personal perception. Old Zhang said that my cultivation is unprecedented, but since the 4 states of the Shangqing state have been clearly divided since ancient times, someone must have reached it in ancient times. Maybe some of the mythical figures in our legends reached my state. Celestial Master Zhang said that you're the number 1 person in all of history. There's no doubt about that. However, he was talking about the Near Ancient Era. The Near Ancient Era is divided into 3,000 years. This is also publicly acknowledged in the spirit world. Blood Mary said, before the modern times, there's also the ancient times, the primeval times, and the primeval times. There shouldn't be anyone in the ancient times who reached your current state. In the ancient times and the primeval times, some of the mythical figures that existed and have been passed down to this day are actually not human. Cultivation methods have been passed down, and are constantly being perfected and innovated. But are the ancient cultivators stronger than the ones today? Is it because of the spiritual chi tide? That's one thing, but it's not absolute. Blood Mary said, the factors of the environment and resources are all factors that affect the strength of the cultivators in that era. In times of chaos, it's very easy for the strong to be born. In the words of your Huasha people, heroes are created by the times. Then could it be that there are actually people who are stronger than me, or even people who are at a higher level than me, but they've been hiding and keeping a low profile since ancient times? Of course it's possible. At your level, the laws and rules of the world have little effect on you. So there are indeed people who want to hide their whereabouts. Maybe there are people who are as strong as you among them. Chapter 2299. West led the group to Qin Zhao's hotel room and knocked on the door. Moore's hand was in a cast and bandage. The others were more or less injured too. Qin Zhao had already asked the hotel staff to prepare a table full of sumptuous dishes. He looked up at the group. Sit down. The group didn't stand on ceremony. They sat down in a circle. Those who wanted to eat, those who wanted to drink, drank. How's your situation? Qin Zhao asked casually. The others were all busy eating. Only West said, it's not good. Huh, why not? After participating in the Battle of Holy Glory this time, we discovered that our team strength is probably at the second level of all the participating teams. Apart from the top few teams, we can basically deal with most of the teams, but apart from fighting, we're practically useless. Even in battle, our hands and feet are tied. We might not even be able to use 60% of our strength. Do you know the problem? President, our problem is you. Me. Yes, you. West nodded. You've really influenced us too much. In the words of the Chinese, success was because of Xiao He, and failure was also because of Xiao He. Qin Zhao had succeeded the supernatural organization and made it from a nameless and even marginalized supernatural organization to the top supernatural organization in North America. In North America, there were basically no other organizations that could fight against the supernatural organization. But Qin Zhao's influence on the organization was too great. Everyone was used to fighting alongside Qin Zhao. This also restricted the organization. If the battlefield was only in North America, it wouldn't matter if Qin Zhao joined the battlefield or not. However, if it was a higher-level battlefield or arena with a higher-level opponent, then it would be a different story. Their habits would become their Achilles heel. Qin Zhao would always choose the strongest enemy. They would never have to worry about whether Qin Zhao could defeat the enemy. They were even worried that Qin Zhao's opponent would lose too quickly and Qin Zhao would join their battle. But when Qin Zhao wasn't by their side, everything was messed up. Qin Zhao and West communicated. Qin Zhao roughly understood the problem West was talking about. Actually, everyone had already felt it in the past. However, at that time, no one had truly realized the severity of the situation. It wasn't until this moment that they felt it most directly. In the past, when West was leading the team, he kept emphasizing that he didn't want Qin Zhao to interfere. But they also knew that Qin Zhao could intervene at any time. But it was different this time. The rules restricted Qin Zhao and also restricted them. In a trial of this scale, the help Qin Zhao could provide them was very limited. Even if Qin Zhao had a way for them to cheat, he wouldn't do it. It wasn't because Qin Zhao was fair and just, but because it was meaningless. What they wanted was neither a title nor a reward. What they needed was a trial to prove themselves. President, do you know about the anomaly in the wasteland market? Yesterday's terrifying earthquake in the desolate market. If I say I don't know, would you believe me? That super earthquake had something to do with you. Of course, West didn't believe it. Also, from Chen Zhao's expression, the earthquake wasn't just related to him. It was even possible that Chen Zhao was the main cause of this disaster. Chen Zhao ignored West's question. Helle Eyes, if I give you a god's body, can you make it into a zombie puppet? Everyone turned to look at Chen Zhao. Guild leader, did you kill another god? No. Chen Zhao shook his head and told them what he'd experienced in the desolate market. Everyone listened with their mouths agape. They'd thought that they'd already experienced many ups and downs in the desolate market trial. But after hearing Chen Zhao's words, they didn't know what to say anymore. Was what they'd done a trial? Compared to Chen Zhao, they felt like they were playing house. I killed that red demon, and the god's body became my spoils of war. President, let me see it. Helle Eyes was very interested in the god's body. Ruan, go set up a magic seal to seal the aura, Wes said. Ruan nodded. He also wanted to see the god's body first. He even wanted to get some materials from God's body, but he still went to set up the magic seal obediently. A while later, Chen Zhao took out the god's body. Even though it was a corpse, the majestic power it contained made everyone's heart palpitate. Chen Zhao looked up at Helle Eyes. What do you think? Can I? If you can, it's yours. Helle Eyes shook her head regretfully. If she could, she'd be happy to make a god's body into her puppet. But she didn't have enough power. President, I can't do it. Can't do it? Is it because you don't have enough magic? Or do you need a lot of time? Chen Zhao asked. Neither. It's the divinity in the god's body. As long as it exists, it can't fall or be corroded by my death magic. Is there a way to get rid of the divinity? President, let's not talk about whether there's a way to get rid of the divinity. Even if there's a way, the body's value will be greatly reduced, Ruan said. Ruan Faxabin said, the reason why this corpse is the body of God is that it contains divinity. Without this divinity, it is just a relatively strong corpse. So it's useless? Chen Zhao asked, disappointed. President, give me the corpse. Ruan Faxi was so excited that he almost lost control. A god's body. It was even rarer than a dragon. No, to him, dragons weren't rare at all. The Dragon Balls in the Supernatural Organization's warehouse were enough for them to play with. Even if they wanted to drink dragon bone soup every day, it wouldn't be a problem. But a god's body was different. After all, even if Chen Zhao killed a god, there were no gods in the world for him to kill. It wasn't the era of gods anymore. That was why this god's body was so precious. What a waste, Wes said. He didn't know what this god's body could be used for. West wasn't worried about blaspheming gods. He didn't fear gods at all. But if it was used by Ruan Faxben for all kinds of experiments, or even cut into pieces by him, it was simply a blasphemy against a rare treasure. Chapter 2300. No, I'm not going to put this body in a container. I've heard that there are legends about God's blood all over the world. In some legends, people who drink God's blood will have divine power. In some legends, God's blood can make people immortal. Therefore, I want to extract something valuable from God's blood. Ruan Faxi didn't hide his intentions. He said it openly. He knew that there was no point in lying to Chen Zhao and West. He might even lose his chance completely. Furthermore, if he had obtained the body of this god through deceit, he would not have been able to do so. What if Chen Zhao found out? Fight Chen Zhao head-on? Stop joking. Ruan Faxi knew very well that his head would be twisted off and kicked like a ball. After that, he might be resurrected by Helles. Of course, it wouldn't be a normal resurrection. There's very little God's blood in this God's body. It's pitifully little. The body looked like a normal person's. Its skin was firm and shiny. In reality, it was just a dried corpse. There was probably only a few mouthfuls of saliva left in its body. President, science is always accompanied by certain risks. But if we aren't willing to take on even this little risk, science will never progress. Ruan Faxi said righteously. We're not talking about science now. We're talking about theology and alchemy. It's anti-science. That's true, but the logic is the same, right? Ruan Faxi wasn't a person who gave up easily. Plus, if he tried hard, he wouldn't lose anything whether he succeeded or not. Investments need returns. If you can control this God's body and make use of it, I don't mind giving it to you because your increased combat power also belongs to the supernatural organization. But if you experiment with it, it's fine if you succeed, but if you fail, you won't even get your money back. President, even if you're a financial man, investing is risky. That's why I never invest in finance. Ruan Faxi didn't even have the chance to say the lines he'd prepared. But people should be adventurous, right? I like to live a stable life. West glanced at Ruan Faxben and said, Ruan, you're using the God's blood for an experiment. You should at least explain what you can research and what we can obtain. After all, there are probably only a few portions of the God's blood in the world. You're just saying that you can refine something valuable. Isn't that a little too disrespectful? To put it bluntly, both Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization were like investors. On the other hand, Ruan was more like a fanatical scientist. Businessmen pursued profits, while scientists pursued discoveries. They weren't on the same channel at all. West was actually speaking up for Ruan Faxben. Although Ruan Faxi was a fanatical alchemist, he wasn't an idiot. He understood the meaning behind West's words. President, I think the most basic research is enough to create a potion that can increase the power of the supernatural organization. I'm confident about that. But if we want to study the effects of the God's blood, we'll need some formulas. What kind of formula? I'm not sure, Ruan Faxben said. There are related legends all over the world, Ruan Faxben said. At the same time, there are a few recipes that use divine blood as the main ingredient. If I can find and obtain those recipes, it will be of great help to my research. Qin Zhao and West glanced at each other. West nodded slightly and said, President, how about this? We'll temporarily increase the power of all the members of the supernatural organization as Ruan's minimum requirement. The time limit is 1 year. Also, we'll help him search for related formulas around the world so he can study the God's blood further. Sure, but for now, we'll focus on the God's blood. I still hope to keep the God's body intact. If anyone can use the God's body to increase their power in the future, the God's body will belong to them. Actually, Chen Zhao was more inclined to give the God's body to Helith. If she could use it, she'd benefit the most directly. But Helith said that she couldn't use it, so Chen Zhao couldn't do anything. Just then, the demon knife that Dongye Tianqi had placed beside his chair suddenly emitted a cloud of smoke that enveloped him. White face ghost-controlled Dongye Tianqi's body. Dongye Tianqi turned into a warrior. President, White Mask gave Chen Zhao a 90-degree bow respectfully. Of course, White Face Ghost wasn't here to cause trouble. Causing trouble in front of Chen Zhao and the 10 members of the supernatural organization was asking for trouble. What is it? President, I hope that I can slash this body. Everyone rolled their eyes. Qin Zhao said that he wanted to keep the God's body intact. White Face Ghost ran out and said that he wanted to cut him once. Why? I want to obtain more power, White Face Ghost said righteously. I also want to serve the president and the supernatural organization better. You only need to cut this body once. Yes, I am a demon blade. To me, I can only slash humans and monsters. However, if I can slash a god, I will be able to rise to a higher level. I will become a demon blade that can slash gods. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. There's such a thing? Yes, so please allow my request, Lord President. Qin Zhao didn't agree to White Face Ghost's request immediately. Instead, he asked Dongye Tianqi, can you sense his intentions? Dongye Tianqi had been possessed by White Face Ghost, but he still maintained his consciousness. Dongye Tianqi's appearance returned to normal. President, I can feel Demon Knife's desire and anticipation. For now, he's loyal to you. To Demon Knife, there was no such thing as eternal loyalty. Once a demon knife was so powerful that its master couldn't control it. It would either kill its master or change its master. This was why Dongyue Tianqi said that Demon Knife was temporarily loyal to Qin Zhao. If the white-faced ghost reaches the level of Godslayer, can you control him? As long as the president is here, he'll never dare to disobey me. What's your intention? After all, Dongyue Tianqi was the one who used white-face ghost the most, so Chen Zhao was more willing to listen to his suggestions. President, I hope you can agree to Demon Knife's request. If he dares to disobey you one day, I'll personally bury him. Chapter 2301. Dongyue Tianqi wasn't just a warrior. He was also a blacksmith and a swordsmith. He didn't just know swordsmanship. He also knew the knife burial spell. This was a spell that every swordsmith in Japan knew. From the first day the demon blade appeared, the knife burial spell was born. The knife burial spell was a spell that swordsmiths used to deal with demon blades. The first swordsmith forged the first demon blade. It was a bad omen and sealed the blade's soul. The demon blade wasn't willing to be sealed, so it killed its master and killed the swordsmith. In the end, the demon blade fell into eternal silence. The swordsmith also died to the demon blade he had forged. The swordsmith's name was White Cloak Workshop. The demon blade was called Not Evil. Of course, usually the demon blade would inherit the swordsmith's surname. This was why the first demon blade was called White Cloak Not Evil. This legend was very widespread in Japan. For every swordsmith, it was like group training. As soon as the demon blade appeared, it would be sealed and its soul would be buried. But now, swordsmiths didn't believe in this anymore. In fact, most swordsmiths wanted to forge a demon blade to prove their ability. Dongyue Tianqi spoke up for White Mask. It was because the stronger White Mask was, the stronger he was. In the supernatural organization, which was getting stronger by the day, his power was no longer on the list. Apart from Chen Zhao, the top echelons like Gaia, Helis, and Norma couldn't keep up either. Originally, he was a core force in the second echelon, but the people chasing after him gave him more and more pressure. He might even fall to the third echelon. This gave him a lot of pressure. Actually, Chen Zhao and the others didn't look down on Dongyue Tianqi because of this. After all, Chen Zhao had recruited him because of his forging skills, not his combat ability. Moreover, Dongyue Tianqi's forging skills were very useful in the supernatural organization. Do I just need to cut the body? Chen Zhao asked. No. Actually, the process is a bit complicated. How complicated? There's a lot of preparation work, Dongyue Tianqi said. We can't perform the god-slaying ritual here. Is it a ritual? Chen Zhao was surprised. Yes, of course. If he was a living god, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. Just slash him once. But he's just a corpse, so a certain amount of preparation is needed. Okay, we'll talk about it when we get back. Chen Zhao nodded. Guild leader, we would like to inquire about the contents of the next trial so that we can prepare ourselves. Not yet, Chen Zhao said. I'll go ask later. After everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, they stood up and bade farewell. As soon as West and the others left, Baifla came to Chen Zhao's room. Chen Zhao didn't know how he got in. Before the door even opened, he had appeared in the room out of nowhere. I know what the next trial is about, Baifla said. Chen Zhao glanced at Baifla. What do you want to tell me? I don't need anything. What you've communicated with me before is already enough. This time, Baifla was very straightforward. Due to the disaster caused by your battle with the Red Devil, nearly 200 spiritualists lost their lives. Therefore, the trial this time will be more focused on safety. So many people died. That disaster is far more serious than you can imagine, Baifla said. Baifla said, right now, Celestial Master Zhang, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Wendy are constantly comforting the elders and families of those who have died because of this matter. Therefore, the third trial has to be a safer and more reliable one. What's the third trial? Wanda also opened up an alternate dimension. The scale of this alternate dimension isn't as large as the Wasteland Market, but it's more lively than the Wasteland Market. It's called the Four Seasons Palace, and the third trial will be held there. The content of the trial is to defeat Wendy, 23rd Blood Mary, and Celestial Master Zhang's clone, respectively. What kind of clone? Chen Zhao asked, surprised. Zhang Tianyi had learned the clone spell from him. Chen Zhao didn't know Wendy and hadn't interacted with him before, so he didn't know how strong he was. However, he didn't know what Blood Mary's clone spell was like. But with their abilities, no matter how weak their clones were, they wouldn't be too weak. Was it possible to defeat 3 of their clones? Actually, they're not real clones. They're 3 puppets with their magic power and are completely controlled by the 3 of them. In terms of magic power alone, the 3 puppets are above average, but they're very special. As long as it's a spell that the 3 controllers can use, they can use it too. That's why they're called clones. In other words, they have their consciousness and magic, but their magic power is at the same level as the participants, right? You can say that, but more accurately, their magic power is lower than the participants. Even so, the Holy Glory participants probably can't beat them, right? For example, old man Zhang Tianyi. Just give him a little bit of magic power and he might be able to kill his opponent directly. Don't underestimate the participants. There are many geniuses among them. They're not as weak as you think. This has nothing to do with underestimating them. It's the truth. If I don't say it, will they really beat Zhang Tianyi? Even if it's his clone? They don't necessarily need to beat Celestial Master Zhang, Bifla said. In fact, as long as they defeat Wendy's clone puppet, they can win the ticket to the next round. As for the 23rd generation Blood Mary and Celestial Master Zhang's clone puppet, the more outstanding their performance, the greater the advantage they'll get. To put it bluntly, this trial is actually to eliminate the bad seeds and select the best participants for the next trial. How strong is Wendy? Top-level magic power, but not yet at the Shangqing realm. He should be considered a second-level powerhouse. But his strongest point is his alchemy magic. His clone puppet can also use alchemy? Of course. Those 3 clones were all made by him. They were prepared for this trial. Do you think he didn't consider this problem? This looks like a guarding ring. If you pass one, you can go to the next. This is not an arena. The final event of the Holy Glory battle is an arena. It's been like this in previous years. There's really an arena? Of course, and the final arena is a one-on-one battle. All the remaining members of the team will be reshuffled and randomly ranked. Then, they will compete in an elimination arena. Chapter 2302. On the weekend, Failai brought the kids to Clive's house. Failai realized that Clive and Ampa had many kids too. Mr. Clive, are they your kids? Failai asked, confused. She remembered that Clive had said that he and his wife couldn't have children. They're Ampa's and my adopted children, Clive said. Ampa really likes kids, but she'll never have them, so she can only adopt them. Clive looked at his kids, playing with Failai's kids. He liked them too, but he was more rational than his wife. Ampa still couldn't accept reality. Clive knew very well that they would never have children. Clive looked at Failai. What about you? Why did you adopt so many kids? They're related to my husband. They're not complete strangers, Failai said. Instead of sending them to an orphanage, it's better for us to take care of them. Ampa was busy giving candy and snacks to the kids. Since Ampa had planned for today's gathering, he was well prepared. At least the kids had enough food. Clive, where are you working now? Failai remembered that Ampa had said last time that Clive was in school. He should be a teacher there. I'm a physics teacher at Mountain Town Middle School, Clive said. Oh, I remember Didyla saying that you're preparing the enrollment procedures for the kids, right? Didyla should be going to middle school, right? Yes. Fei Lai and Qin Zhao were considering whether to arrange a noble school or a regular school for the kids. Of course, the so-called noble school didn't mean that only nobles could attend. Real noble schools focused on elite education. But if they sent the kids to a noble school, they would lose the fun of regular kids. If it was a regular school, it would definitely be a school in Mountain Town. The middle schools and elementary schools in Mountain Town were average. The education level and teachers were below average. Whether it was a noble school or an ordinary school, it could be said that there were pros and cons. This was why Qin Zhao and Fei Lai were hesitant. The way of thinking and the world view of the children raised in these two schools was as different as heaven and earth. Fei Lai shared what was bothering her with Clive. Miss Fei Lai, it depends on what you expect of them. Cliff said, I used to be a teacher in a noble school for 3 years. I know the environment and teaching methods of a noble school. To be honest, most children, or even all children, should not receive that kind of education. There's something wrong with the education of the noble schools. The problem is very big. Cliff said there was once a teacher who gave his students an assignment to cheat their parents of $100, no matter the means. This kind of education has already violated the law, right? Yes, that's true. But there are about 2,000 elite schools in the United States, and all of them use this kind of education method. Extreme and extreme education methods. In the future, most of the children who graduate from these schools will be able to get into famous universities or get a good job, but they will lose their bottom line. Miss Fei Lai, you want the children to have a complete childhood and have their own social life, but social life in a noble school is more about networking, not childhood friendships. You are right. Fei Lai nodded. At this time, Dee Dee's voice came from the courtyard. Little Jerlin, you can't touch that. Ampa saw little Jerlin and Dee Dee in the courtyard. Then he saw that Jerlin was holding a plant that looked like weeds in her hand, and his expression immediately changed. Baby, throw this away. Ampa rushed over in a hurry. It was a magic plant she had planted in the courtyard. This magic plant had a very strong curse effect. But Jerlin did not care and directly stuffed the magic plant into her mouth. This time, everyone was anxious. Dee Dee picked up Jerlin anxiously and pinched her chin. Spit it out. Don't. Little Jerlin pushed Didira's palm away. She did not care and swallowed it. Jerlin was used to it at home. She had almost peeled off a layer of grass. She dared to stuff plants and bugs into her mouth. Most of the time, no one cared about her. After all, as long as it was harmless, eating it would not be a big problem. Amber and Clive also saw little Jerlin swallow the magic plant. They were a little flustered. Miss Fei Lai, something's wrong. The plant Jerlin ate is poisonous. Carrying Jerlin, Dee Dee came to Fei Lai anxiously. Fei Lai's expression also became panicked. Poisonous? Deadly poison? It's very troublesome, Dee Dee said with a serious expression. At this time, Ampa rummaged in the drawer and found a bottle of medicine. Give Jerlin this. It can neutralize the plant's poison. This is... Of course, Fei Lai could not accept this medicine of unknown origin. I'll take my daughter to the hospital. Miss Ampa, Mr. Cliff, I'm sorry, but we need to go. Ampa hesitated for a moment and still stuffed the medicine into Fei Lai's hands. If it doesn't work after going to the hospital, or if Jerlin has epileptic symptoms, use this. Fei Lai thought for a moment and still accepted the medicine. Fei Lai carried Jerlin into the car, while Dee Dee was responsible for taking the other children away. Fei Lai had only driven a short distance with Jerlin when she received Didira's call. Miss Fei Lai, that medicine should be the antidote. Antidote? Little Jerlin ate a void spirit herb, a magical plant. The void spirit herb can force a person's soul out of their body. You're saying that Jerlin ate a magic plant? Yes. Dee Dee replied over the phone. And I can feel that the potion Lady Ampa just gave you should be a magic potion. Are they spiritualists too? I'm not sure. I didn't know that they were spiritualists before. They've never shown it to me. Should I tell your uncle? Phalai asked. It's best. I don't think Miss Ampa and Mr. Cliff have any bad intentions, but Jerlin ate their things by mistake. So I still need to let him know. That's true. Phalai accepted Dee Dee's suggestion. After all, she did not know magic at all. Dee Dee was also not familiar with other systems of magic. So she should let Qinzhao know. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2303. What? Jerlin was poisoned? Qinzhao jumped up. How is she now? I'll go back now. Bifla glanced at Qinzhao. The two of them had teamed up to roam the streets of Istanbul again. Something happened at home. Qinzhao said immediately. I have to go back. I've been a professional doctor for a long time, Bifla said. I've studied ancient and modern medicine. Do you need me to go with you? Qinzhao thought about it. He was a doctor too. But he didn't know what was going on with Jerlin, so he decided to take Bifla with him. Perhaps Jerlin's problem was very troublesome. Perhaps he couldn't solve it, but Bifla could. Sure, I'll take you. You're not planning to fly back to LA, are you? Bifla looked at Qinzhao in surprise. What? Is it okay? You can fly at high speed for a long time? Can you fly faster than a plane? Yes. For us, there's no upper limit to magic power. Why not? Okay. I haven't tried long distance flying before. Plus, my flying speed hasn't been that high. Then I'll let you experience extreme flying speed. How about that? Qinzhao grinned. Sure. I'd like to see how fast you can take me. Qinzhao grabbed Bifla. Bifla was also ready in an instant. Instantly, Bifla felt a huge pressure pressing down on him. Qinzhao had already turned into a beam of light. He dragged Bifla into the sky. Right now, in Istanbul at night, one could clearly see a beam of light flying up from below. It passed through the night and disappeared into the distance. Fast, too fast. Even Bifla felt the pressure. Bifla watched the disappearing lights of the city fly away. In just a few seconds, Qinzhao and Bifla were already on the sea. The direct distance from Istanbul to LA was about 11,000 kilometers. They had to pass through the Black Sea and then the Tyrrhenian Sea. Then they had to pass through the Strait of Gibraltar and enter the North Atlantic. To avoid being detected by high-altitude satellites, Qinzhao flew at a low altitude, close to sea level. Bifla could only use his senses to determine his current direction. He couldn't even open his eyes. About 2 or 3 minutes later, Bifla clearly felt his speed decrease. Bifla opened its eyes and found an unfamiliar city in front of it. That is LA, Qinzhao said. What's your flying speed? I haven't calculated it, but it should be over Mach 180. Bifla sucked in a breath of cold air. He himself was not proficient in flying in the first place. His own speed was about 100 kilometers per hour. However, Qinzhao had crossed the Pacific Ocean in less than 2 minutes. This speed was already explosive. This is the speed of my brand new form after transcending the calamity. It wasn't this fast before. I tested my speed with a professional speed measuring device before, and it's about Mach 45. Bifla was once again astonished. Even the speed from before was beyond his reach. Qinzhao's speed just now had probably reached dozens of kilometers per second. That was almost 1,000 times faster than his flying speed. When he reached the sea outside Los Angeles, he slowed down, but he was still shockingly fast. A moment later, they landed outside Mirror Lake Manor. Just then, Phalai rushed out of the house. Qin, you're back so soon? Phalai was surprised too. She'd thought that no matter how fast Qinzhao was, he would need a few hours to get back. After all, she had no idea how fast Qinzhao was. Plus, Qinzhao was far away in Istanbul. Yes, Phalai, this is Bifla, my friend. Hello, madam. Bifla nodded slightly. Hello. How's little Jerlin? Phalai told Qinzhao about the situation. Jerlin doesn't seem to have any symptoms. She's still jumping around. Chun Zhao and Baifla entered the manor. Zhirlin was still running around and playing around. Your daughter is very active, Baifla said meaningfully. Did she take stimulants? This joke isn't funny at all. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Wow, Dad. Seeing Chun Zhao return, Zhirlin pounced on his leg excitedly and hugged him. Chun Zhao held Zhirlin in his arms. Darling, I heard that you're eating random food again. Humph. It doesn't taste good at all. Do you usually find good food in the yard? Those who didn't know would think that Chun Zhao abused Zhirlin and didn't give her enough to eat, so she had to look for random food in the yard. Zhirlin thought back seriously. After a while, she answered, I don't think so. While the father and daughter were talking, Chun Zhao was also secretly checking Zhirlin's body. But after a long time, Chun Zhao didn't find anything wrong with Zhirlin. Little Zhirlin still looked healthy. Chun Zhao glanced at Baifla. Darling, this is Uncle Baifla. Uncle Baifla. Zhirlin gave Baifla a bright and sweet smile. Hello, darling. Baifla put on a rare, gentle smile and opened his arms. Do you want me to hug you? Zhirlin was outgoing and not afraid of strangers at all. Uncle Baifla, hug. Baifla took the opportunity to take Zhirlin and check her body at the same time. However, just like Chun Zhao, he couldn't find anything wrong with little Zhirlin, even after checking for a long time. Do you still have the potion Cliff gave you? Did you give it to Zhirlin? No. Feilai shook her head. I don't know if it's harmful, so I didn't dare to use it. Feilai handed the potion to Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao sniffed it first. It had a faint fragrance, but he didn't find anything wrong with it. Let me see. Baifla took the potion from Chun Zhao. Yes, this is spirit summoning water. It's the antidote to the void spirit grass. There's nothing else. Does Zhirlin need the spirit summoning water now? Chun Zhao asked. I'm not sure, Baifla said hesitantly. If a normal person consumes the void spirit grass, their soul will directly leave their body, and they need to be summoned back with the spirit summoning water. However, your daughter doesn't show any symptoms of the void spirit grass. Then is she okay now? I'm not sure. Baifla didn't dare to come to a conclusion. After all, she was Chun Zhao's descendant. He'd never encountered something like this. Who knew if something would happen to Zhirlin afterwards? Has she come into contact with other spells? Not yet. Chapter 2304. Not finding a problem didn't mean there was no problem, especially a child. Chun Zhao's child. So, Chun Zhao couldn't let his guard down. You don't have any ideas? I can find Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary and ask them to check. Chun Zhao thought about it. He didn't have any other ideas now. He could only keep Zhirlin by his side. He could go to Istanbul and find Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary and ask them to check. Of course, Chun Zhao didn't have to find a problem with Zhirlin. But in his current situation, he wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't find a problem. Feilai, I'll take Zhirlin to Istanbul. Chun, sorry, I didn't take good care of Zhirlin. No one wants this to happen, Chun Zhao said. It's not anyone's fault. If anyone's at fault, it's Zhirlin. After giving some instructions to Feilai, Chun Zhao hurried to Istanbul with Zhirlin. Help me carry Zhirlin. Also, protect her, Chun Zhao said. When Chun Zhao used energization, he could bring people along, but he couldn't use protective spells. For example, when he'd brought Baifla to Baifla had suffered quite a bit on the way. Based on his speed, Zhirlin couldn't handle it. Baifla was happy to carry Zhirlin. Daddy, fly. Seeing Chun Zhao and Baifla carry her higher and higher, Zhirlin screamed in excitement. Zhirlin, close your eyes. When you open them again, you'll find yourself in Istanbul, Baifla said gently. Chun Zhao glanced at Baifla. You seem to know how to get along with children. I was once a father too. Chun Zhao didn't continue asking. After all, Baifla was over 400 years old. His child didn't have Bifla's abilities. It was very likely that he'd passed away with time. Therefore, this should be a very sad topic for him. When Bifla carried Jerlin, the control of his arms made him seem more like a father. Chun Zhao didn't slow down because Bifla would protect Jerlin. Jerlin gradually fell asleep in Bifla's arms. She was snoring softly and seemed to have fallen asleep. Soon, Chun Zhao and Bifla arrived in Istanbul. Back at the hotel, Bifla patted little Jerlin lightly. "My dear, it's time to wake up." Bifla did not wake little Jerlin. Chun Zhao took Jerlin. "Forget it. Let her sleep." Bifla nodded. "I'll go find Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Generation Blood Mary." "Yes, thank you." After Befora left, Chun Zhao stayed by Jerlin's side. Jerlin was sound asleep, but after waiting for 2 hours, Chun Zhao felt a little uneasy, because Jerlin was sleeping too soundly. Usually, a child of little Jerlin's age would throw a tantrum. Sometimes it was too cold or too hot, or if she had a nightmare, she would cry in her sleep. Both little Jerlin and little Larissa were in the same situation. Most children have this condition, and there was no way to stop it. But little Jerlin was sleeping too soundly today. Chun Zhao walked to Jerlin's side and gently patted her cheek. "Jerlin, wake up. It's time for breakfast." If a child didn't have enough sleep, she would cry too. If she had enough sleep, she would wake up quickly if she heard the sound of food in her sleep. However, Chun Zhao called out twice, but little Jerlin was still asleep. She was still snoring softly. Chun Zhao finally confirmed that something was wrong with Jerlin. Chun Zhao immediately picked up the phone. "Bifla, where's old Zhang and the 23rd Generation Blood Mary? They're busy. I'll have to wait for a while. Bring them here immediately. Jerlin is still sleeping. I can't wake them up no matter how hard I call." Chun Zhao's tone was hurried. "How's her breathing? Her heart rate?" "I've already checked. Her breathing and heart rate are normal. Her temperature is normal. Her complexion is normal, and her soul is normal too. It hasn't left her body, but she just can't wake up." Just then, Zhang Tianyi took Bifla's call. "Chun Zhao, how's your daughter?" "I don't know. She just can't wake up." It wouldn't be too big of a problem if it was just eating the void spirit grass by mistake. However, I've heard Bifla's description just now. Your daughter's situation seems to be a little different. Normally, if an ordinary person eats a void spirit grass by mistake, they'll experience symptoms of an out-of-body experience very quickly. Furthermore, your daughter isn't even 2 years old yet, so the symptoms should be more obvious. Zhang Tianyi said hesitantly. "Just tell me if you have a solution." Chun Zhao was in a bad mood. "I'll go over now," Zhang Tianyi said. A while later, Zhang Tianyi and Bifla arrived at the hotel Chun Zhao was staying at. After arriving at the hotel, the first thing Zhang Tianyi saw was little Jerlin sleeping soundly on the bed. It wasn't his first time seeing her. "Your daughter's soul is sleeping, not her body." Zhang Tianyi made his judgment at first glance. "The void spirit grass seems to have a special effect in your daughter's body. It didn't make her soul leave her body, but it became a soul hypnosis effect. This is too strange. Normally, in order for a magic plant to have other effects, the plant has to have contact with magic. However, there's no magic in your daughter's body, nor are there any signs of contact with magic." Zhang Tianyi looked at Chun Zhao and asked for confirmation. "She really hasn't practiced magic before, right?" "No." Chun Zhao shook his head. "Do you have a solution? There are many ways to awaken the soul, but most of them aren't suitable for your daughter." "Most of them aren't suitable. In other words, there's still a small portion of them, right?" "Right now, I can't even confirm your daughter's symptoms. Do I dare to make a choice?" Zhang Tianyi looked at Chun Zhao helplessly. Even if Chun Zhao said that he didn't have to bear any responsibility, Zhang Tianyi didn't know where to start. He really didn't dare to do anything. If he could wake Jerlin up, everything would be fine. If there were any unexpected changes, then the benefactor would immediately become the enemy. When Blood Mary comes, Zhang Tianyi said, let her take a look. Chen Zhao was very unhappy, but he didn't know who he should be angry at. Suppressing his anger, he sat on the sofa quietly, but his expression was enough to explain his current mood. Not long after, the 23rd generation Blood Mary arrived. When he entered, he saw everyone with different expressions. In the end, his gaze landed on little Jerlin. Chapter 2305. Little Jerlin is in the process of awakening. You guys are the most powerful people in the world. Do you really need me to judge something like this? 23rd looked at everyone in surprise. Awakening? Impossible. There's no sign of magic power on her all. Zhang Tianyi immediately rejected 23rd's judgment. She's awakened the nirvanic power. Zhang Tianyi frowned. Bifla studied little Jerlin carefully. Chen Zhao was confused. What's the nirvanic power? It's an extremely special magic system. Only witches who awaken this kind of magic talent can learn and use it, 23rd said. Have you guys never heard of it? I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, Zhang Tianyi said. Plus, I don't know what's so special about the nirvanic witches. Of course, I can't judge. So my daughter is awakening? Did something happen? Chen Zhao suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. The night of awakening was extremely dangerous for other people and spiritualists, but it wasn't a problem for Chen Zhao at all. He could even deal with little Larissa's extraordinary third night. He was more than 100 times stronger than before. So, he wasn't worried if he could deal with little Jerlin's night of awakening. There are many special awakenings in history, and they all have a common characteristic. On the night of awakening, the attacks are much scarier than usual. The night of awakening of the Nirvanic, which is also one of the special awakenings. It's called the scariest night of awakening. 23rd looked at Chen Zhao. The night of awakening of the Nirvanic, which is also called the Nirvanic night. This might be the cruelest battle in your life. Actually, there are always 1 or 2 Nirvanic witches in every era, but only 3 have passed the Nirvanic night and survived. The other 2 aren't famous. They're powerful, but they haven't become famous. However, the most ancient Nirvanic which has been heard of in the spiritual world. Her name is Lilith. How strong will the Nirvanic night be? Chen Zhao asked. Tell me everything. Chen Zhao was confident in his abilities. The 23rd generation also knew his own strength, but she still used such a cautious tone to warn him. This meant that the Nirvana night was not as simple as he had imagined. The Nirvana night, which awakens on the first night, is 100 times more terrifying than the awakening on the third night. Those 2 unknown Nirvana witches are the first night, and it is said that Lilith is the second night. Lilith is known as the evilest witch, not because she bewitched Cain to kill people in the Bible, but because she released the demons. The demons were released by her into the human world, and it was also because of her that Europe's Dark Age began. I heard that the witch Lilith seems to be the ancestor of the vampires. There are many legends about Lilith the witch, and there are also legends about her being a vampire. All these indicate the Europeans' hatred for Lilith. What happened to her? A crusade? Or was it sealed? Disappeared. The 23rd Blood Mary said. Blood Mary, the 23rd generation, said the mortal armies of that era were nothing but ants to her, and the church was still very weak back then. They didn't even have the right to face her, let alone attack her. The most powerful religions of that era were the Druids and Shamans, as well as some other random religions. The Druids and Shamans tried to attack Lilith many times, but they all failed. Even the church was able to develop and grow stronger because the Shamans tried to attack Lilith many times, which angered Lilith, and she attacked the headquarters of the Shamans. At that time, the upper echelons of the Shamans suffered heavy losses, and the inheritance of advanced shaman magic was almost cut off. A large part of the shaman's sphere of influence at that time overlapped with the current sphere of influence of the church. After that battle, the shamans were almost wiped out, and the church replaced them. The 23rd generation blood, Mary paused for a moment before continuing. However, Lilith disappeared completely at some point in time. There was no information about a certain battle, nor was there any crusade. She just disappeared without a trace. Maybe she got tired of the conflict and went into seclusion? That woman was a terrifying existence that tried to turn the human world into hell. How could she get tired of conflict? Zhang Tianyi said, "The Western magic system was learned from demons, and she was the first person to summon demons to the human world. So, it shouldn't be a problem to say that she's the founder of ancient magic. I don't want to admit it, but she started the dark ages of Europe and the modern history of magic in Europe. The 30 years that she existed was also the period when magic developed the fastest. Magic in that era developed in an explosive way, and almost all the embryonic forms of modern magic appeared in that era." Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, "You guys seem to be talking about Lilith, but she doesn't seem to have anything to do with my daughter's silent night. It was supposed to be unrelated, but in the few notes or manuscripts left by the 2 annihilation witches after Lilith, it was recorded that they had met Lilith on the night of silent destruction. Seen her." Chen Zhao frowned. "What do you mean by seen her?" "Literally," Blood Mary said. The 23rd generation Blood Mary said their notes didn't mention much about this. They only mentioned that they had met Lilith in the silent night. However, they didn't mention whether the so-called meeting was for a battle or some other purpose. The 3 Nirvana witches before your daughter lived in different eras. Let's talk about how the first Nirvana witch, or even the first witch, managed to live for so long. Yet she showed up in the night of silence after the other 2 Nirvana witches. I'm afraid it wasn't because she wanted to see her descendant, so I think it's highly possible that she's up to no good. If you're prepared to help your daughter survive the night of silence, you have to be prepared to fight the first Nirvana witch," said Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao then looked at Blood Mary. "What's the special characteristic of the so-called Nirvana spell? And how powerful is that demoness?" Chapter 2306. The 23rd Blood Mary shook her head. There are no accurate records of Lilith's level. All the records of her battles are described as unbelievably powerful. Chen Zhao was the strongest person in history that Zhang Tianyi had acknowledged. Lilith was also the beginning of Western magic. It seemed like there would be an unavoidable battle. The 23rd Blood Mary could not provide Chen Zhao with more information. "Do you need us to stay and help?" Bifla asked. "No, I can handle it." Chen Zhao shook his head. "Chen Zhao, I'll arrange for your daughter's night of Nirvana to be in the desolate bazaar, because I'm not sure how big it will be. If it's in the real world, there might be catastrophic consequences," Zhang Tianyi said. "If it's in the desolate bazaar, there will also be catastrophic consequences," Chen Zhao said calmly. "The desolate bazaar is already in ruins. The next trial won't be in the desolate bazaar either. Also, the mutants and spirits attracted by the night of Nirvana might not be able to enter the desolate bazaar. This will also reduce the danger." "All right then." Chen Zhao didn't mind. For little Jerlin, this was also a good choice. The next day Clive and Ampa came to Mirror Lake Manor uneasily. "Miss Phalai." Cliff and Ampa had come today mainly to apologize and check on Jerlin's condition. They had given the antidote to Phalai yesterday. However, a normal parent would not casually give an unknown liquid to their child. They were worried that Phalai's overcaution would cause something to happen to Jerlin. That was why they had come today to check on the situation. "Mr. Clive, Ms. Ampa, why are you here?" "Miss Phalai, we're here to see Jerlin and apologize for our mistake. We shouldn't have left such a dangerous thing in the yard." Phalai also wanted to blame them, but she blamed herself more. If not for her mistake, Jerlin would not have eaten the void spirit grass by mistake. "No one wanted this to happen," Phalai said. She didn't want to hold anyone responsible for this right now. This kind of thing was meaningless. Now, she only hoped that little Jerlin would be safe. "How's little Jerlin?" Clive asked. "Something happened," Phalai said. "My husband sent someone to take little Jerlin abroad for treatment. I heard there are experts in this field abroad." "Miss Phalai, my husband studied medicine," Ampa said worriedly. "Those plants are also medical, so Clive can treat patients who accidentally ate those plants. The medicine from yesterday can do it. Didn't you give it to Jerlin?" She was worried that an ordinary hospital would find it difficult to cure the curse of the void spirit grass, no matter how good the medical conditions were. "There's no need. Jerlin's father is also an expert in this field. He also studied medicine. He knows how to help Jerlin recover. But those plants are very rare and their composition is very complicated. Even if a medical institution were to analyze them, it would take a long time, not to mention the preparation of an antidote, and Clive's antidote has already passed the test. It's safe and reliable," Ampa said hurriedly. "Ampa, please believe what I'm feeling right now. I'm worried about my daughter too. We know what's best for little Jerlin." But Ampa still wanted to say something, but Clive stopped him. "Miss Phalai, if that's the case, we'll leave first. If you need any help with Jerlin's situation, you can contact us anytime." Okay, Phalai didn't ask them to stay as guests this time. It was impossible to say that she didn't feel a knot in her heart after something like this happened. Both sides had a certain degree of responsibility in this matter, so even if they could reconcile, that was something to worry about in the future. At least for now, both sides still had their concerns. "Clive, can you calculate where little Jerlin is now?" Ampa asked. "I'll try." Clive walked on the road with his eyes closed, his fingers drawing in the air in front of him. After a while, Clive suddenly opened his eyes, surprise on his face. Little Jerlin is actually in Istanbul now. How is that possible? It hasn't even been 18 hours since it happened. LA is at least 10,000 kilometers away from Istanbul. How can she be so far away? Rich people can do it. In the end, the two could only come to this conclusion. Perhaps little Jerlin's parents had chartered a plane for her to go to Istanbul for medical treatment. No matter how good a normal doctor is, they can't cure little Jerlin, Clive said worriedly. Then what do we do now? Although the symptoms of the void spirit grass will make a person's soul leave their body, their bodily functions will be the same as a normal person's. Also, after 7 days, the problem will worsen. The soul might not be able to find its own body and wander. The body will lose consciousness forever and become a vegetable. Ampa was even more worried. "Looks like we have to go to Istanbul," Clive said. The longer Jerlin's condition dragged on, the more dangerous it would be. So Clive's decision was very firm. "Are the children coming too?" "Let's not bring them. Let them stay at home," Clive said. A trip to Istanbul wasn't cheap. If so many children went together, their credit cards would be maxed out. After all, it was a normal family. They couldn't be like Phalai's family. In order to send little Jerlin abroad for medical treatment, they chartered a plane. They still had to consider the financial aspect. Also, the children could basically live on their own. Even if there were 1 or 2 little ones, the parents would take care of them. It shouldn't be a problem. Also, they weren't going to play. It was probably just a round trip. The two returned home. After telling the children, they packed their luggage and rushed to the plane. They were in too much of a rush. The tickets they booked were also on the spot. Time was too tight. Thankfully, they arrived before the flight. After boarding the plane in a hurry, they both looked a bit tired. Taking a plane was also a very tiring thing. Even someone at Chun Zhao's level would feel tired on a plane, let alone others. After more than 10 hours of sailing, they finally arrived at Istanbul. In their tiredness, they didn't have time to appreciate the scenery along the way. They found a random hotel and checked in. "Ampa, go sit over there. I'll finish the paperwork soon." Chapter 2307. Clive. "Anpa, why are you here?" Suddenly, a familiar voice came. Both Anpa and Clive turned their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. They found that it was their old friend, Edgerson. Edgerson was a magic raw material supplier. Anpa was also a witch who liked to make strange magic potions, so she had more contact with Edgerson. Edgerson, why are you here? Are you here for a different reason than I am? Edgerson asked. What purpose do we have? Do you know? Seeing Clive and Anpa's puzzled and surprised eyes, Edgerson seemed to understand something. Aren't you? No, it's nothing. Both of their faces were filled with confusion. Edgerson seemed to have something he didn't want to say out loud. Anyway, it's nice to see you here. Edgerson came forward and hugged Clive and Anpa. Because of Edgerson's appearance, Anpa and Clive temporarily gave up on the idea of returning to their rooms to rest. The three of them sat in the lounge area of the lobby and chatted. Did you and your wife come to Istanbul for a holiday? No, if we came out for a holiday, we would bring our children with us, and we would choose to go in the summer. Clive sighed. Edgerson looked at Clive and seemed to see the worry on both of their faces. Is it convenient to tell us? It's like this. The two of them explained the situation. Edgerson patted Clive on the shoulder and said, You did make a mistake, and I'm proud of your courage to take responsibility. If there's anything you need me to do, just ask. But are you here for work? Or is there something else? Clive asked curiously. Of course, if it's not convenient to say, then don't. Actually, it's not a secret. Istanbul is holding a gathering of the supernatural world. It's a competition and a trial. It's called the Battle of the Holy Radiants, and it's for the title of 10 Holy Radiants. I'm one of the participants. Edgerson, with your strength, you should be able to get this title easily, Cliff said. Edgerson smiled bitterly and shook his head. How could it be that easy? I can only be considered below average here. There are many participants who are stronger and more outstanding than me. There are even many things that are beyond our imagination. For example, in the last trial, if you didn't see it with your own eyes, I'm afraid you wouldn't dare to imagine what happened. What happened? I don't know what exactly happened, but I heard that there were 2 spiritualists fighting. In the end, the entire trial ground was destroyed. Everyone was involved in the battle, and the final count was more than 200 people. How big is the trial ground? Cliff and Ampa were relatively ordinary members of the supernatural world. Apart from their respective areas of expertise, they weren't particularly outstanding in terms of combat. Usually, he would occasionally beat up a few evil spirits that were causing trouble. This was basically their limit. Above them, Edgerson was considered to be on another level. Edgerson was considered an elite. Once, when Cliff and Ampa were exorcising spirits, they encountered a powerful evil spirit that they couldn't fight against. They asked for help from their friends around them, but all they got were replies like, Sorry, I can't help. Only Edgerson stepped forward bravely and easily dealt with that powerful evil spirit. From then on, they had a more intuitive impression of Edgerson's strength, which was that he was powerful, extremely powerful. But in reality, there was still a certain gap between Edgerson and a true expert. And in the supernatural world, there were also a few incomparably huge peaks that suppressed everyone and made people shrink back. So, with Cliff and Ampa's realm and position, they simply couldn't understand how terrifying those peak spiritualists were. The area of that trial ground is about the same size as Istanbul. That's practically a walking nuclear warhead. Cliff said in amazement. It was an existence he couldn't imagine. The strength of those true top-notch spiritualists is something you and I can't imagine. Edgerson sighed. It was his first time participating in the Battle of the Holy Glory, and it was also the first time he felt so insignificant and insignificant. He never knew that there were so many experts and powerhouses in the supernatural world, even existences that made people feel despair. But fortunately, according to the official reply, the 2 parties who fought were not participants in the Battle of the Holy Glory. One of them was an ancient demon that had been sealed for more than 1,000 years, and the other was one of the most powerful spiritualists in the world. If I were to stand in the same arena with such a terrifying opponent, I'm afraid I would immediately feel despair. By the way, are there many spiritualists in Istanbul? Cliff suddenly asked, changing the topic. There are quite a lot. Just the participants in the Battle of the Holy Glory alone might number in the thousands. There are also other spiritualists, probably more than 10,000. That many? Cliff frowned, his expression a little ugly. What's wrong? I previously divined that the little girl was sent to Istanbul, but I don't know the exact location. If the little girl was in an ordinary city, there would at most be a few or dozens of spiritualists. My divination magic could barely delineate a rough location, but with so many spiritualists, my divination magic would definitely be interfered with. Not to mention divining that little girl. Even divining my current location would be difficult. Most of the time, divination magic used certain tools to use the divination target as a signal receiving station and then determine the location of the divination target. Every spiritualist was like a magnet. It was very easy for them to attract certain supernatural forces. Of course, this also included the guidance of such divination information. If it was in an area with a low density of spiritualists, such divination could be done accurately or more accurately. But in the current Istanbul, it was very likely that one could encounter a few spiritualists fighting just by going out for a walk. This caused Cliff's divination to be almost unable to accurately determine the location. If he forcefully divined, even if he determined a location, perhaps when he found the place, he would find a few spiritualists playing landlord. Moreover, Cliff could only be said to know divination, but he was not proficient in it. If he gave up on magic divination to find the person, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack for the couple. I'll help you contact a professional fortune teller, Adjerson said. Chapter 2308. They rested for the whole night. Clive and Amber both recovered a lot of energy. Adjerson knocked on the door too. After Clive opened the door, he saw a gypsy woman wearing a red veil beside Adjerson. She's Li Pan, the fortune teller I found for you. Hello. Li Pan couldn't see her face clearly, but she could roughly tell that she wasn't very old. Her graceful and sexy figure, coupled with the mysterious veil, gave her a hazy sense of beauty. Please come in. Adjerson and Li Pan entered the room. Li Pan went straight to the point. Hi, who do you want me to tell for you? Let me be clear. My divination spell is a small medium range search spell. If it goes beyond the city, the effect will be lower. The larger the range, the lower the accuracy. It's best for finding people. If you're looking for something, the effect will be greatly reduced, but the price won't be reduced. The more powerful you are, the harder it is to tell. How much do you charge for finding people? I'll use my magic power as the standard. For every 20% of my magic power, I'll charge $500 more. The price is okay, but are you sure you can find them? There's no way my magic can't find someone, unless that person's magic level is 10 times higher than mine. She's just a little girl and she hasn't learned any spells. An ordinary person? I can guarantee that I can find them. Sure, I can also accept your price. The more information you can provide, the easier it'll be for me. You can also save money. It'll be best if you have her personal items. Her name is Jerlin. I think her Chinese name is Chun Jerlin. She's Chinese and American. She's 2 years old. Her father is Chinese and her mother is American. This information wasn't a secret. After all, Clive also lived in Mountain Town. Basically everyone in Mountain Town knew about Chun Zhao's family. His school in Mountain Town was even trying to enroll Chun Zhao's children. After all, with Chun Zhao's generosity, he would definitely donate a lot of money to the school. Is there any more information? Her father should be beside her. He's from China, Chun Zhao. Anything else? No. Okay, I'll try searching. Li Pan's divination method was very special. It wasn't the kind of divination that required a crystal ball. Instead, he spread out a map of Istanbul, then pricked his finger and dripped a drop of blood. Under Li Pan's control, the drop of blood slowly moved across the map. A clear red trail was drawn on the map. However, when the blood moved to a certain area, it stopped. Clive turned to Li Pan. "Is the person we're looking for here?" "No, there is a very powerful existence in this area, powerful enough to reject all divination and divination," Li Pan helplessly said, "and to be able to use their own mana to cover the entire area without leaving a single gap. I'm afraid there are only a few people capable of this." "Then there's no way to divine it?" "Of course, I'm a professional in this field." Li Pan clearly felt that, in her field of expertise, she would not allow others to look down on her. "Since this path isn't going to work, let's change directions." Li Pan used the same method to begin the second round of divination, but this time the location of the drop of blood was different from the first. However, the drop of blood once again moved to the periphery of the area and stopped moving. "The girl you're looking for is in this area, but because there is a sect master level existence in that area, he has completely covered the entire area with his mana, so I can't accurately determine her location." "This area is so big. How are we going to find her?" "This shouldn't be part of our deal." "Don't worry, I can use another method," Li Pan said. "Do you have any other magic?" "That's not difficult at all," Li Pan confidently said. At the same time, he took out his phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Taylor, did you miss me? Do me a favor and help me investigate the guest list of the Istanbul hotel. It's a Chinese Qinzhou." Following that, Li Pan hung up. Clive and Amber looked at Li Pan in a daze. "What did you just do?" "Although the area can't be narrowed down, there's only one hotel in that area, the Istanbul Hotel. He's a foreigner, so of course he's staying in the Istanbul Hotel. I have some friends who are also very good at finding people." "But you're a fortune teller." "As long as I can find the person. It doesn't matter how I find him." Li Pan rolled his eyes. Just then, Li Pan received a message on her phone. "Found it," Li Pan said. Li Pan had never been an inflexible person, especially in this era. If she held on to old ideas, she would only starve to death. So she happily accepted the $1,000. Clive and Amber also received the exact address. The two discussed and decided to find Jerlin immediately. Nothing happened on the first night. Chen Zhao didn't know whether to be happy or worried. Even the legendary first witch, Lilith, was only on the second night. Jerlin's future achievements might not be below Lilith's, at least if she was interested in magic. Chen Zhao wouldn't reject her becoming a witch. Of course, that would be when she had a complete worldview. Just then, Bifla passed through the wall. Chen Zhao looked up at Bifla. "You should go through the front door." "Inconvenient," Bifla said indifferently. He was used to entering Chen Zhao's room this way. Bifla glanced at Jerlin, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. "Your daughter is really extraordinary. It's a pity I don't know Nirvana. If I did, I'd definitely take her in as a disciple." "You won't be able to teach her magic. Your magic really doesn't suit other people, especially your daughter." Bifla's words reminded Chen Zhao. Even if Jerlin wanted to learn Nirvana in the future, he wouldn't be able to teach her. This was a huge problem. From the 23rd Blood Mary's words, Chen Zhao knew that Nirvana witches could only learn Nirvana. They couldn't learn other spells. Just like India, she could only use scarlet magic. There wouldn't be a second Nirvana witch in the world. Not to mention becoming Jerlin's teacher. "Oh, when I went to your house yesterday, I saw that your daughter's talent is also very outstanding. She seems to have awakened, right?" "When did she awaken?" "The day she was born, the third night," Chen Zhao said proudly. Chapter 2309. I've seen a third night awaken before. Her talent is more outstanding than any third night awaken I've ever seen. She's a flawless piece of unpolished jade, Bifla complimented without holding back. My daughter had a special night of awakening. The day she was born was the night of awakening. Coincidentally, the biggest tropical storm hit the west coast of America. At the same time, the superstorm blew the scariest thing from the sea up. Awakening at birth? That's an unprecedented talent, Bifla said. Is a third night's special awakening rare? It's already 1 in a million, and it's a special awakening, Bifla said. Also, the earlier they awaken, the better their talent. No one has ever awakened on the day they were born. So my bloodline is the most outstanding. I can't deny that. How about letting your daughter become my student? No way. Don't tell me you want to take my daughter's body. I've already chosen my 5th substitute. I don't need another one. Plus, I can only take a male's body. No. Chen Zhao didn't want his daughter to learn magic from someone who could take his disciple's body. He had too many choices to learn magic. He could ask Zhang Tianyi or Blood Mary, the 23rd generation. At the very least, he could ask his daughter to learn holy light magic from John Sr. That was also an option. As for rejecting, Chen Zhao had never thought about that. His face was so big, they wouldn't reject him. Bifla didn't expect Chen Zhao to agree immediately. He didn't continue asking. Huh. Bifla snorted. What's wrong? Someone's using magic to detect this place. There are so many spiritualists in Istanbul. What's so strange about someone using a detection spell? It's not strange, but after sensing my territory for the first time, the spiritualist who still doesn't know how to restrain himself doesn't know what's good for him. He's still using magic to test me. Do you think that's offensive? Chen Zhao didn't feel anything about it. There's an unwritten rule in the supernatural world. If perception magic or detection magic detects another spiritualist for the first time, and it's not considered a search target, they can't probe the second time. If they do, it'll be a sign of hostility. Are you sure she's hostile towards you? It has nothing to do with hostility. If she doesn't know I'm here the first time, I can forgive her. But the second time, she knows I'm here and still does what she wants. That's a provocation. Chen Zhao felt that Bifla's explanation was a bit forced. Bifla glanced at him. Do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? A little. The spiritualist who tested me with a spell should be a rare moonlight witch. Moonlight witch? Moonlight witch? What breed is it? Chen Zhao looked at Bifla curiously. The moonlight witches absorb the essence of the moonlight. However, when the dark clouds cover the moonlight, they themselves become a source of light similar to the moon, attracting other creatures to come closer. Is there any use for it? Many spirits and magical creatures are attracted to moonlight, Bifla said, and the moonlight witches can temporarily give spirits a physical body. Chen Zhao frowned. What a strange characteristic. Gaining a physical body also means that they can be physically attacked. Bifla gave Chen Zhao a meaningful look. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. What do you want to say? On the night of awakening, no matter what kind of attack it is, the assailants all have one thing in common, and that is that they mainly use spirit bodies. You just happen to be a physical attacker, Bifla said. Chen Zhao thought about it and realized that it made sense. He also had methods to attack spirit bodies, but most of the time he would use fist shadows imbued with magic power to attack, or use holy light cannons to bombard. Although the effect was obvious, his most powerful ability couldn't be used. The fist shadows and holy light cannons were quite effective against ordinary spirit bodies, but if it was used to deal with a powerful spiritual body, the effect would be much weaker. If the opponent was the same level as him, or if the opponent was a level weaker, then it would have almost no effect. Under normal circumstances, Chen Zhao wouldn't bother to cause trouble for such a purpose, but it was different this time. Chen Zhao would be facing Nirvana Night, which he didn't know how strong it was. From the 23rd Blood Mary's tone, Chen Zhao could hear caution and seriousness. Chen Zhao couldn't underestimate this. Plus, his success or failure concerned his daughter's safety. Do you know where the moonlight witch is? When she used the detection spell, I left a mark on her. Tell me where she is. I'll go there myself, Qin Zhao said. About 25 kilometers from here. She's also in a hotel. It's a gypsy woman. Help me look after Jerlin. I'll go there, Bifla said. After Bifla gave him the exact location, Qin Zhao left. Bifla stayed behind to look after Jerlin. I suddenly have a bad feeling, Li Pan said, frowning. A really bad feeling. What's wrong? Ederson asked. I don't know, but I feel like something really dangerous is approaching. Li Pan had just earned $1,000 and was quite happy. Now his good mood was gone. Then let's leave immediately. They were both spiritualists. Avoiding danger was a common trait among spiritualists. Ordinary people might turn a blind eye to this feeling, but they really believed in this sudden feeling. The two reached the hotel parking lot and quickly found their car. But before they could start the car, a person appeared in front of them without any warning. It was an Asian, well-dressed and wearing a faint smile. Get out, Qin Zhao said emotionlessly, looking at the two in the car. Li Pan and Ederson immediately understood that the Asian standing in front of the car was the danger Li Pan felt. Without any hesitation, Ederson stepped on the accelerator and drove toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao pressed one hand on the hood, and the car immediately froze in place. It couldn't move. Ederson tried to reverse and get out of Qin Zhao's control, but the car still couldn't move forward or backward. Enhancer! Ederson and Li Pan raised their eyebrows. Since they couldn't leave, they could only get out. Ederson looked at Qin Zhao cautiously. Kid, don't look for trouble. I'm best at dealing with enhancers like you. 9 Heavens, Divine King. Chapter 2310. Ignoring Ederson's provocation, Qin Zhao stared at Li Pan. You're the Moonlight Witch? Qin Zhao asked. Humph. Seeing that Qin Zhao was ignoring him, Ederson attacked Qin Zhao directly. Ederson waved his hands. Halo of Weakness. A red halo appeared around Qin Zhao and quickly shrank toward the center. The next moment, the halo of weakness had completely bound Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao glanced at Ederson out of the corner of his eye. Are you serious? Ederson sneered. He was about to tell Qin Zhao the function of the halo of weakness. But when Qin Zhao spread his arms, the ring of weakness snapped. The words that Ederson was about to say were stuck in his throat. He couldn't say them anymore. If you're using this spell as a hula hoop, I suggest you make it bigger next time. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Ederson was so angry that his veins bulged. You forced me to do this, Ederson roared and raised his palms. Qin Zhao's surroundings seemed to be enveloped by something. Qin Zhao frowned. He grabbed the hood and lifted the entire car. Then he swung it at Ederson. Bang! Ederson was sent flying. He crashed into the car door, his entire body embedded in it. Ederson, Li Pan exclaimed. At the same time, he looked at Qin Zhao angrily. Congratulations. You've successfully angered me. I'm here to hire you. Of course, that's under normal circumstances. If you try to attack me, you'll lose your payment. I won't accept an enemy's employment. Li Pan glared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao tossed the car to the side. Before you attack, you can still ask for the payment you want. After I break your arms and legs, I'll consider accepting your payment, Li Pan shouted. Lunar eclipse. Shadow hand. A huge shadow suddenly appeared on the ceiling of the garage. An ink-black hand reached out and grabbed at Qin Zhao. However, Qin Zhao merely waved his hand, and the shadow hand shattered like a mirror. The pieces flew everywhere. Don't use such a boring move, Qin Zhao said indifferently. How about you listen to the payment I'm willing to pay first? The more casual Qin Zhao was, the angrier Li Pan became. It was as if all her hatred was not worth mentioning in the eyes of the man in front of her. Crescent moon, arrow of light and shadow. Li Pan's body assumed the posture of drawing a bow and lightly released the fingers of her right hand. An arrow flickered in the light and shadow and shot toward Qin Zhao. However, when the arrow was less than half an inch away from Qin Zhao, it suddenly exploded like a dazzling firework. Qin Zhao was stunned, and so was Li Pan. Very beautiful. Qin Zhao wasn't mocking Li Pan. He truly felt it. She was really beautiful, but to Li Pan it sounded extremely sarcastic. This move of hers was an extremely penetrative and lethal magic attack, but the result was unacceptable to her. What was this? His attack actually turned into fireworks. You forced me to do this, moon-waxing, destroyer wolf, Li Pan shouted. Above her head, a bright moon several meters in diameter appeared. This bright moon was actually just a flat surface, or rather an exit, and within the bright moon, a claw stretched out from within. It was a wolf claw. A giant wolf was trying to crawl out of the moon. Qin Zhao grabbed the car beside him and threw it at the wolf. The car hit the giant wolf. The wolf whimpered and disappeared into the moon. Destroyer wolf? Was that the destroyer wolf Fenrir in Norse legends? Don't be ridiculous. Can that thing destroy the world? Even a car on the street can kill it. Can that thing destroy the world? Li Pan's face was red. Of course. What she had just summoned wasn't a destroyer wolf. She didn't have the ability to summon the real Fenrir into the real world. But the wolf she had just summoned wasn't an ordinary wolf either. It was a member of a group of demon wolves that worshipped Fenrir. But after being hit by Qin Zhao, it probably wouldn't survive. Qin Zhao didn't want to hurt Li Pan. After all, he needed her to work for him. But when Qin Zhao had thrown the car, he had used a lot of strength. The thing with the destroyer wolf on its head couldn't be any more dead. Suddenly, a golden awl attacked Qin Zhao's back. It was a Jerson who had attacked Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao had hit him with the car, but he didn't really want to kill him. So, a Jerson quickly woke up, but he was still secretly observing the situation. While Qin Zhao's attention was on Li Pan, he had attacked Qin Zhao from behind. The golden awl he had used was called the Dragon Slayer Gold. It was a weapon specially forged to penetrate dragon scales. Since it could penetrate dragon scales, its penetrative power couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, it had a magic shield. Basically, as long as the Dragon Slayer Gold touched someone, the shield would collapse instantly. If the Dragon Slayer Gold had hit Qin Zhao, his body might really have been penetrated. But before he attacked, Qin Zhao's shadow I had already seen all of a Jerson's actions. Qin Zhao's left hand reached behind him, and a Jerson's arm was caught. Qin Zhao took the Dragon Slayer Gold from a Jerson's hand and played with it. It's really sharp. But very quickly, Qin Zhao crushed the good thing in his mouth into a ball with one hand. A Jerson and Li Pan's expressions became even worse. This Asian man's strength was too terrifying. Crushing the Dragon Slayer Gold with his bare hands? The Dragon Slayer Gold was specialized in breaking all kinds of magic shields. The magic it contained had always been able to break through other people's defenses. No one had ever heard of anyone being able to crush it into scrap metal with their bare hands. Sink in the swamp forever. A Jerson immediately used his ultimate move. The concrete ground under Qin Zhao's feet suddenly turned into a swamp. The surrounding cars started sinking into the swamp. Anything that touched the swamp, regardless of whether it was dead or alive, couldn't resist the swamp's devouring. But if one could fly, then this spell would become useless. Coincidentally, Qin Zhao knew how to fly, but a Jerson and Li Pan seemed to have expected Qin Zhao to fly. At this time, Li Pan also took action. She loudly shouted, "Full moon! Magic forbidden zone!" Instantly, all the spiritual qi in the air was absorbed by Li Pan's magic. Qin Zhao's body lost balance, and he fell into the swamp uncontrollably. Li Pan's spell could instantly make all the spiritual qi in a certain range disappear, so most spells couldn't be cast. Even if spells could be cast, they couldn't be released because there was no spiritual qi in the air, so it became a magic forbidden zone. Chapter 23:11. Qin Zhao looked at his hands. He could feel that the surrounding spiritual qi had completely disappeared. How big is your forbidden zone? Qin Zhao asked. It's enough to trap you inside, Li Pan said coldly. Not enough. Qin Zhao shook his head, smiling. Humph, really? A Jerson stood outside the forbidden magic zone. His palms crossed together, and a yellow magic ball condensed between his palms. Qin Zhao looked at a Jerson. This forbidden zone shouldn't have the flight path of your spell, right? A Jerson didn't answer. Instead, he used his actions to show his intentions. The magic ball indeed couldn't maintain its flight path in the forbidden zone. But if it was a solid magic ball, it wouldn't be affected. A Jerson pushed his palms forward. The solid earth elemental magic ball shot toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao raised his hand to block it. The magic ball exploded in his palm. That's it. As soon as Qin Zhao finished speaking, he saw his palm and arm petrify. Petrification? Qin Zhao had been attacked by petrification spells before. Even in the supernatural organization, there are people who could use petrification spells. Petrification was rare, but it wasn't a very rare type of spell. Qin Zhao clenched his fists, and his muscles exerted force. Instantly, the stone layer on his skin cracked. Petrification didn't completely petrify a creature. Instead, it petrified the creature's skin. When Qin Zhao was hit by the spell, the skin on his arm was petrified, but this didn't affect Qin Zhao's strength. Moreover, petrification could be dispelled by his own mana. Of course, there was a prerequisite. That was, he had to have enough mana. Petrification was actually earth elemental invading the body. Then it would assimilate the body. You could think of earth elemental as poison. If a spiritualist was poisoned without antidotes or other treatment methods, they would need a large amount of mana to dispel the poison. Earth elemental was like this, but it was more troublesome than most poisons. Good teamwork, Qin Zhao said as he patted off the petrified skin on his arm. Do you still have mana? Li Pan asked confidently. She'd already used her trump card and trapped Qin Zhao in the forbidden zone. Then, a Jerson used petrification to waste Qin Zhao's mana. Moreover, one couldn't recover in the forbidden zone. With a Jerson's cooperation, she was confident that no one could defeat them. Are you ready? A Jerson was already preparing an even bigger and scarier petrification spell. It condensed into a huge petrification sphere before him. But the next moment, a Jerson and Li Pan's expressions changed. This was because they all felt a large amount of spiritual energy surging towards the magic forbidden zone. Li Pan, a Jerson yelled. I know. Li Pan didn't understand what was going on either. Her forbidden magic zone was still in effect, but the surrounding spiritual energy was surging into the forbidden magic zone. One must know that the greatest characteristic of this magic forbidden zone was that it could prevent the surrounding spiritual energy from entering for a short period of time. If she couldn't do this, then no matter how much she absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy, there would always be spiritual energy from the outside to replenish it. In that case, this magic forbidden zone would be meaningless. But now, something unexpected had happened. The heaven and earth spiritual energy in the periphery seemed to be on a rampage as it continuously attacked the magic forbidden zone. Ederson, hurry up! I can't hold on for much longer. Li Pan's body was trembling. She had never had such a hard time maintaining a forbidden area. Ederson didn't dare to waste any more time. He cast a huge petrification spell at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao wouldn't let him succeed so easily this time. He casually punched. The shadow of a fist shattered the petrification spell. At the same time, a large amount of earth elements flew back at Ederson. Ederson and Li Pan turned pale with fright. No matter how they thought about it, they couldn't understand how Qin Zhao could still release such an attack in the magic forbidden zone. In fact, Qin Zhao's fist wasn't a magical attack. It was purely a physical one. He used his strength and speed to compress the air and create a strong pressure. A Jerson couldn't dodge the earth element in time and was hit by the one he had released. Instantly, a Jerson's skin turned to stone. A Jerson. Li Pan was shocked. Let me see how big your magic, Forbidden Zone, is. Otherwise, I'll blast him to smithereens right now. Li Pan gritted her teeth. She'd never met an opponent like Chun Zhao. He was such a difficult opponent. In the past, when she and a Jerson worked together, they'd always been successful. But this time, when they worked together against Chun Zhao, they were actually suppressed to the point of despair. What do you want? Li Pan growled. Her eyes were filled with hatred. I told you I want to hire you. Hire me for what? You're so much stronger than me. I don't think there's anything I can help you with. My daughter is about to awaken, and I specialize in physical attacks, so I need your moonlight magic. Li Pan raised an eyebrow. She immediately understood. I see. When? Tonight or tomorrow night, Qin Zhao said. It had already been a night. Jerlin's awakening would either be tonight or tomorrow night. My fee isn't low, and it's such a dangerous operation. How's his life? Is it enough? Qin Zhao asked calmly. Aren't you afraid that I'll ambush you on the night of awakening? Li Pan felt that she had something on Qin Zhao. Then you better pray that I die on the night of awakening, Qin Zhao said. Plus, I already reminded you that I came to find you with sincerity. Unfortunately, you rejected my kindness. I can do it tonight, but not tomorrow because the third trial starts tomorrow. You won't be eliminated, Qin Zhao said. I have a way to let you advance, directly. Li Pan didn't believe Qin Zhao. Her face was filled with mockery. The battle for the holy glory is very important to me. I can't give it up for you. I've said it before. I can let you pass the next round of the trial. Unless you prove it to me first, I won't believe you. I'm not negotiating with you, Qin Zhao said impatiently. You can kill me, but I won't compromise. Seeing Li Pan's determined gaze, Qin Zhao took a deep breath and took out his phone. Old Zhang, I hope that one participant can advance directly in the next trial. Impossible. I'm not negotiating with you, Qin Zhao said, annoyed. I need someone to advance directly. Give me a reason. Chapter 23:12. Qin Zhao felt like he didn't have enough face. I hired a participant, Qin Zhao said, but she doesn't want to give up the trial. It's not your team? Of course not me. Am I that kind of person? Why did you hire that participant? I heard from Bifla that she's a moonlight witch. I understand. Okay, I agree, Zhang Tianyi said. At first, Zhang Tianyi thought that Qin Zhao wanted to get a spot for his team member. This was against the principle of fairness. Zhang Tianyi couldn't agree to such a request. But after hearing Qin Zhao mention the moonlight witch, Zhang Tianyi found it more acceptable. After all, it was much more dangerous to be hired by Qin Zhao than the third trial. Of course, one of the important reasons was that Qin Zhao was the one who made the request. If it was someone else, Zhang Tianyi would probably slap the person's face. This meant that Qin Zhao was shameless enough, even though Qin Zhao called Zhang Tianyi. But Li Pan still didn't believe Qin Zhao. To her, Qin Zhao just found someone to put on a show. If you can really help me pass the third trial, then I'll agree to hire you, Li Pan said. Also, I don't want my teammates to be hurt. Sure, Qin Zhao said. You'll receive the official notice of the battle. Then, Qin Zhao walked to a Jerson and grabbed her petrified shoulder. Soon, a Jerson's petrified shell cracked. A Jerson collapsed onto the ground weakly. Ampa and Clive arrived outside Qin Zhao's guest room. They first looked around the corridor. Ampa, check if there's anyone inside, Clive said. There's a soft breathing, but it's very smooth. It should be Jerlin's. There's no one else. Just little Jerlin? Clive's face was full of doubt. Her father is really irresponsible. That being said, it saved them a lot of trouble. Clive cast a spell on the doorknob like a thief. Crack! The door was unlocked, and the two quickly entered the room. The luxury of this suite made the two of them a little dazed. However, the two of them soon found little Gerlin on the bed. Ampa took out the magic potion he'd prepared. But before Ampa could feed the magic potion to little Gerlin, suddenly the two of them lost control and crashed into the wall behind them. Then they realized that their bodies were slowly sinking into the wall. What's going on? What the hell is going on? The two of them cried out in panic. At this moment, a person slowly appeared on the opposite wall. The two glanced at each other, shock written all their faces. Who was it? Ampa Bifla strolled to the couple. Who sent you? Bifla asked calmly. No one sent us. Who are you? I'm the one interrogating you right now, so you don't have the right to ask questions, Bifla said calmly. Who sent you to harm her? We never intended to hurt little Gerlin. It's useless for you to quibble. I advise you to tell me the truth. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what I'll do. Chin just titi. At this moment, the door opened. Qin Zhao returned and saw Bifla. At the same time, he saw two human faces on the wall in front of Bifla. Qin Zhao looked at the three in shock. Qin Zhao didn't immediately recognize Cliff, who was embedded in the wall. However, Clive recognized him at first glance. Mr. Qin, it's me. I'm Clive. Clive. Qin Zhao didn't react immediately. Who was Clive? Gradually, Qin Zhao recalled that he'd met Clive once before. When he and Dadaira went to the supermarket, Cliff led a group of children. There was a brief exchange between the two. Later on, little Gerlin accidentally ate the void spirit herb at Clive's house, which caused her to fall into a deep sleep and awaken. Bifla released them. The two of them were immediately spat out by the wall. Yes, they were spat out. Mr. Cliff, why are you here? Clive was a little embarrassed and a little ashamed. Gerlin accidentally ate the void spirit herb because of us. We heard that you brought her to Istanbul, so we wanted to make up for our mistake. Mr. Cliff, this isn't anyone's fault, so don't take it to heart. Qin Zhao would be lying if he said that he didn't blame Clive for what happened to little Gerlin. But at least he didn't lose his mind and wouldn't blame Clive for everything. He didn't plan on pursuing Clive's mistake either. No matter what, Clive didn't have any bad intentions. Ampa looked at everyone and then at little Gerlin. Mr. Qin, are you a spiritualist too? Yes. Qin Zhao nodded. Then you should know little Gerlin's symptoms, right? But I see that she's still unconscious. If it's hard to get the antidote, we can provide it. No need. Gerlin's main problem isn't because of you. Her accidental eating of the void spirit herb was just the cause. She's awakening now. Awakening? Ampa and Clive both raised their eyebrows. They'd never heard of anyone awakening at such a young age. If that's the case, we're even more duty-bound, Ampa said. Ampa said, we hope to be of some help on the night of little Gerlin's awakening. Thank you for your kindness, but there's no need. Qin Zhao shook his head. But one more person's strength means one more insurance for little Gerlin's safety. You can't help. Although we aren't that strong, we can still help out a little. Bifla sneered. You don't even understand little Gerlin's current situation? She's not an ordinary awakening. There's a difference between ordinary and ordinary awakenings. Mr. Cliff, you really can't help, Qin Zhao said, rubbing his forehead. We know a few spiritualists. We can help little Gerlin find more helpers. Mr. Cliff, I said that there's no need. Qin Zhao's tone became heavier. Mr. Qin, we really want to help. If there's a need, I'll find you, but there's no need for that now. To Cliff and Ampa, awakening was very risky, especially since it wasn't Gerlin's first night of awakening. Especially since it was obviously not Gerlin's first night of awakening. The risk was even greater. Although Qin Zhao had a powerful spiritualist with him, they still felt that it couldn't guarantee Gerlin's safety. Chapter 23:13. Cliff and Amber really wanted to stay and help. But Chen Zhao still had that unapproachable attitude. This made them very disappointed. They really wanted to do something for little Jerlin, even if it was an insignificant amount. The two glanced at each other and made up their minds. On the night of awakening, they would attack regardless of whether Chen Zhao agreed or not. After Cliff and Amber left, Chen Zhao also started preparing. He wasn't sure if Jerlin's night of nirvana would be tonight or tomorrow night. Ederson suddenly jumped up and realized that he was lying on the bed. Li Pan and a few other teammates were in the room. Li Pan, where's that guy? Gone, Li Pan said. We lost. Ederson vaguely remembered the last scene. Li Pan nodded. We lost badly. Li Pan, Ederson, who did you guys meet? One of the teammates asked. A very powerful guy. Li Pan, and I couldn't beat him even when we worked together. Li Pan used all his trump cards, a teammate asked. Their team was put together at the last minute, but they were familiar with each other and knew about Li Pan's trump cards. Plus, Li Pan had used the magic forbidden zone once before. They still remembered Li Pan's magic forbidden zone. They really couldn't imagine who could beat Li Pan when he used his trump cards. And Ederson had teamed up. An enhancer, Li Pan said. There was an enhancer in their team. Hearing Li Pan's words, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Oh, enhancer? I want to meet him and take revenge for you guys. The other teammates also rubbed their palms, as if they were ready to go all out. Just then, Li Pan's phone rang. Your name is Li Pan? Moonlight Witch? An old and slightly hoarse voice came from the other end. Moreover, his tone had a hint of arrogance to it, making Li Pan feel very uncomfortable. Who are you? Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi? Celestial Master Zhang? Huh. You think you're Celestial Master Zhang, just because you say so? Junior, you don't know your place. Be careful of divine punishment. I can't be bothered with you. Li Pan didn't believe that it was Zhang Tianyi on the other end of the phone. Therefore, she directly hung up the phone, not intending to continue the conversation. Li Pan, who called? A person who claims to be Celestial Master Zhang, Li Pan said. Are there still scammers in the Battle of Holy Glory? And he even dared to use Celestial Master Zhang's name to swindle people? Isn't he a little too daring? Truly daring, Li Pan nodded. She and her teammates didn't believe that Zhang Tianshi would call Li Pan, who wasn't even related to him. Li Pan, your head. What's wrong with my head? Li Pan raised her head in confusion, and in that instant, she saw a dark cloud gathering above her head. The others were also puzzled and confused. They were indoors, so where did the dark clouds come from? In the next moment, lightning flashed and thunder roared in this small patch of dark clouds. Then, a bolt of lightning struck down from the dark clouds. Ah! Li Pan was sent flying to the ground. Li Pan felt his whole body cramping up. What the hell is going on? How could this be? Who is using magic to attack me? But where is there anyone here? At this time, the phone rang again. Li Pan picked up the phone, trembling. How is it? Does it feel good to be struck by lightning? You bastard, did you do it? Rumble. At this time, the dark clouds above Li Pan's head began to rumble again. Li Pan, subconsciously, shrank her head. What do you want? I'm just informing you that you've directly advanced in the next trial. After saying that, the call was hung up. Hey, damn it. You still haven't dispelled the magic. Li Pan, what the hell is going on? It's the guy who called me just now. Do any of you know what kind of magic this is? Li Pan raised her head to look at the dark clouds above her head. She was still a bit frightened. This magic is very similar to the Chinese Taoist thunderdrawing technique. Is this really a Taoist magic? Li Pan felt a bit scared. I just checked the surroundings and didn't find any signs of magic being used. It seems like someone used this magic on you from very far away. Very far? How far? It could be a few kilometers away, or it could be dozens of kilometers away. Is that possible? It really is beyond common sense. Incomprehensible magic, as well as the distance of the magic. It can't really be Lord Celestial Master, right? At this time, even the way Li Pan addressed him had changed. She felt a bit scared. Everyone was also shocked. Before, they couldn't believe that Celestial Master Zhang would call Li Pan. But at this moment, through all sorts of unimaginable details, they were able to pin this matter on Celestial Master Zhang. It seemed that if these inconceivable magic and spell casting were combined with Zhang Tianyi, it would make perfect sense. Li Pan, did you offend Lord Celestial Master? How could that be? I didn't even see him. How could I offend Lord Celestial Master? What did he say on the phone? Li Pan lowered her head and fell into silence. Should she directly say that she had been notified that she had passed the third trial? If that person really was Celestial Master Zhang and she had directly advanced, if this matter were to spread, wouldn't it attract a lot of trouble? After a moment of hesitation, Li Pan said, "That person said that I can't say it casually or I'll be punished." Everyone understood Li Pan's concerns. Regardless of whether that person was Celestial Master Zhang or not, he could cast spells on others from a long distance away. A spiritualist with this ability must have extraordinary means. Even if it wasn't Celestial Master Zhang, they couldn't afford to offend him. This method was so terrifying that it made one's hair stand on end. If the person's power was a bit stronger, if the person attacked her in her sleep, she would probably be half dead even if she didn't die. Li Pan thought even more. Could it be that the man was telling the truth? Had she really advanced because of his phone call? If it was true, not only was that guy powerful, but his background and influence were also frighteningly great. Li Pan glanced at the dark clouds above her head and turned to the others. I need to go out. Is it related to Celestial Master Zhang? After a moment of hesitation, Li Pan nodded. Then go. Everyone felt that Celestial Master Zhang had given Li Pan some secret mission. They were somewhat envious and jealous of Li Pan. With a lot on her mind, Li Pan went to the address that Qin Zhao had given her. Chapter 23:14. In the evening, Li Pan found Qin Zhao in a restaurant. Qin Zhao was eating with Baifla in the restaurant. Baifla only glanced up at Li Pan before continuing to enjoy his food. Is it dinner? Sit down and eat, Qin Zhao said, pulling out a chair. Li Pan took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. If she could beat Qin Zhao, she really wanted to flip the table. In the end, Li Pan still sat down. Waiter, add another set of cutlery, Qin Zhao ordered. There's nothing on this table that suits my taste. Give this lady another menu. Li Pan glanced at the menu and shuddered. The cheapest item on the menu was almost 2,000 new Turkish lira. New Turkish lira was Turkey's currency. The exchange rate was about 1 o'clock, 8 compared to RMB. You're paying, right? Li Pan asked, looking at Qin Zhao. Help yourself. It's my treat. Hearing this, Li Pan calmed down. So, she ordered the most expensive item as revenge. After Li Pan ordered, the waiter looked at Li Pan with a strange expression. At the same time, he looked at Qin Zhao. Sir, this lady ordered 86,500 new Turkish lira. Got it. Qin Zhao waved his hand. Qin Zhao glanced at Li Pan. I don't mind how much you ordered, but you better finish it. I don't like to waste food. Li Pan snorted softly, but she was also thinking that she really ordered too much. After eating and drinking, Li Pan followed behind Qin Zhao and Baifla as if she was pregnant for 10 months. This restaurant's not bad. It's SOO. Qin Zhao shrugged. I have a restaurant in LA. Next time, I'll treat you to my restaurant. Sure. If you come to Central Asia, I'll treat you. I have a lot of meat from magical creatures. Coincidentally, I also have a hobby in this area. Many magical creatures that I killed became my food reserves. Then next time let's talk more about this, Baifla said. Li Pan followed behind the two of them, his thoughts already wandering to the horizon. It's almost 7, Bifla said. If your daughter awakens tonight, it should be about time now. Chun Zhao checked the time, but there's no sign at all. Although they were both in the restaurant, their domains covered the entire hotel. It could be said that every move of everyone in the hotel was under their surveillance. It was no different from accompanying little Jerlin. However, the night was still calm and peaceful. Not even a single evil spirit appeared. The second night? You have to pay more for the second night, Li Pan said. Chun Zhao looked back at Li Pan and Bifla as well. Then he said indifferently, It's not the second night, it's the third. Li Pan's face immediately turned red. The third day. Li Pan raised his voice. Are you crazy? You want me to help you face the third day? I'm not asking you to face it, Chun Zhao said calmly. I'm just asking you to assist. I don't care. You have to pay more. Otherwise I'll kill your friends and family. You, Li Pan's chest heaved in anger. She gritted her teeth and glared at Chun Zhao. I was going to give you a reward, but you rejected me and even attacked me. Li Pan felt regret and heartache. After all, she'd noticed that Chun Zhao was rich. No, more accurately, he was very rich. When Chun Zhao paid the bill just now, he'd used a black card. Li Pan didn't have money, but she'd heard rumors about the black card. If she hadn't rejected him so decisively, she might have been able to get a huge reward. It was a calm night. There were no conflicts or cruelty. The whole of Istanbul was so peaceful. The next day, there was a knock on Li Pan's door. Li Pan opened the door in annoyance and saw Chun Zhao standing outside. What? Women who'd just woken up were all the same. Usually, she looked very exquisite. In fact, when she'd just woken up, she was also full of sleepiness and gave off a lazy aura. Li Pan was the same. Her hair was messy, and she kept yawning. Her eyes were filled with laziness and sleepiness. Get ready. We're going to the venue for the night of awakening tonight. So early? Li Pan was very unhappy. It's only morning. Usually, Chun Zhao liked to sleep in and wake up naturally. Most of the time, he wouldn't arrange his work in the morning. But it was different this time. The time wasn't up to Chun Zhao to decide. Chun Zhao had to prepare beforehand. Don't waste time. I'll give you half an hour to wash up and prepare. Come to my room in half an hour. Li Pan ran to the bathroom, cursing. She was unhappy, but she couldn't ignore Chun Zhao's threat. Half an hour later, Li Pan finally came to Chun Zhao's room. For a woman, half an hour was too little to prepare. Chun Zhao carried Jerlin in his arms. Little Jerlin had been sleeping like this for 3 days. Your daughter is so young? What's so strange about that? How old do you think my daughter should be? She's already a third night awakener at such a young age. Li Pan felt like she'd wasted her life. She'd awakened at 15 and awakened on the second night. But this little girl didn't even look 3 years old. In the past, Li Pan had thought that she was already blessed by the heavens with her talent. But compared to this little girl, the difference was like heaven and earth. Chun Zhao could only roll his eyes at this. Where are we going next? Li Pan asked. She was also curious. The battlefield of the third night definitely wouldn't stay in Istanbul. If it was in the city, it would have disastrous consequences. Not just spiritualists, but also ordinary people. Wasteland Market, Chun Zhao said. Wasteland Market? Isn't that already sealed? Li Pan's voice paused. She suddenly remembered that Chun Zhao could convince Celestial Master Zhang to let her advance directly. This meant that his background was extraordinary, so it wasn't strange for him to have the right to enter and exit Wasteland Market. When are the others coming? Li Pan asked. Others? Who else? Helpers, of course, Li Pan said matter-of-factly. Naturally, Li Pan thought that Chun Zhao had already gathered a large group of helpers. Aren't you? Apart from me, no one else. The others can help. Li Pan grabbed her neatly combed hair and yelled hysterically, "Are you crazy? Just me and you? Against the third knight? More accurately, just me. You're just a support." Chapter 23:15. Is it too late for me to quit now? It's too late. Chen Zhao brought Li Pan to a remote entrance. Zhang Tianyi had given him this entrance. Moreover, no special conditions were required. All that was required was the input of mana. Chen Zhao glanced at Li Pan, who was standing still in front of the entrance. "Do you need me to push you in?" Helpless, Li Pan was pushed on the back by Chen Zhao. Li Pan fell into the entrance. In an instant the world spun. When Li Pan opened her eyes again, she was already in the desolate land market. At this moment, they were on the rooftop of a dilapidated building. Chen Zhao followed closely behind. The wasteland market had become a wasteland. Everything was so desolate. There were ruins everywhere. Li Pan had also participated in the trial last time. Therefore, he had seen the wasteland market after it was destroyed, but it was not as direct as this time. As far as the eye could see, all he could see was a scene of doomsday. There was no sign of life, only a deathly silence amidst the desolation. Chen Zhao looked around. This place had been destroyed by his battle with the Red Demon. However, it was also because of that battle that the spiritual energy of the world here became very abundant. Coupled with the fact that this place was abandoned, there was no one to manage the entrance. The spiritual energy from the outside world was no longer obstructed in entering this place, so this place could actually be considered a part of the real world. Even ordinary people had the opportunity to enter this place. This place was actually very similar to the alternate dimension that Chen Zhao had created in Mingyue Villa. The alternate dimension that Chen Zhao had created was also open. As long as they could find the entrance, they could enter. Moreover, there were no special conditions set for the entrance. Of course, Chen Zhao's alternate dimension was even more barren than this place. After all, there was a mirror image here in reality. On the other hand, the alternate dimension that Chen Zhao had created was barren, other than a large area of land and water from the outside, and air from the outside. There was nothing else. Li Pan looked at him. "What about now? What are you going to do?" "Find a spacious area," Chen Zhao said. "This building isn't suitable for a battlefield." As soon as he said that, the roof under his feet shook slightly. Li Pan almost lost her balance. Fortunately, Chen Zhao supported her with one hand. "I agree with you. Let's leave this place as soon as possible. It feels dangerous here." Li Pan could even feel the entire building shaking. The building under their feet was already leaning a little. After the shaking just now, the angle of the tilt increased further. However, there were no elevators here, and they were in a high-rise building. Li Pan walked down a few floors and found that the tremors were still coming. Moreover, the tilt of the building was increasing. "Are we going to die here?" Li Pan's expression was extremely unsightly. They were not here to fight against the collapsing building. If he really died here, then he would have died before he could succeed. How sullen would that be? "Don't go down. Go to the edge," Chen Zhao said. "Walk along the edge? You're not thinking of jumping down, are you? I don't have a strong constitution like yours. I'm not an enhancer." Li Pan said, "Moreover, you're carrying a child. Even if you're fine, your daughter won't be able to endure it." However, Chen Zhao didn't care about Li Pan's objection at all and left the safe passage. Chen Zhao smashed a window and looked outside. From his angle, he could clearly see the degree of tilt of the building. "You're not really thinking of jumping, are you?" Chen Zhao glanced at Li Pan and reached out. "Grab my arm." "What are you doing?" "No, no." Seeing the height outside the building, Li Pan's legs turned to jelly. Seeing that Li Pan wasn't willing, Chen Zhao grabbed her shoulder and leaped out. "Ah!" Accompanied by Li Pan's hysterical screams, Chen Zhao pulled her and slid down the glass wall of the building at high speed. However, they slid down a little faster. Soon, Li Pan felt nothing under her feet. They had already slid out from the bottom of the building. As Li Pan screamed, she suddenly stepped on the ground. Affected by inertia, she continued to rush forward. Chen Zhao let go of Li Pan so that she wouldn't get hurt. After running for a dozen meters, Li Pan fell to the ground. Chen Zhao landed on the ground steadily. He only took 2 steps forward to get rid of the inertia. Li Pan jumped up and roared, "I'm going to kill you!" Chen Zhao allowed Li Pan's weak fists to hit him. "Okay, you've vented enough. Let's get down to business." At this moment, Li Pan recovered a little and turned around to look at the tilting building in front of her. She couldn't believe that she had really slid down the glass wall. No matter how she looked at it, it was impossible. More accurately, it was impossible for her to be unscathed. But in the end, she was really unscathed. At least, ignoring the fact that she had fallen to the ground, she was indeed unscathed. Of course, Li Pan wasn't a physicist, so she didn't think too long. She couldn't understand it anyway, so there was no need to waste her brain power. Chen Zhao didn't plan on explaining it to her either. Before coming in, Chen Zhao had already found a battlefield in the real Istanbul city. As a mirror image of Istanbul, the layout here was basically the same as Istanbul. This was Istanbul's city hall. In front of the hall was a park square. The view was wide and the terrain was flat. "Help me carry my daughter." Chen Zhao placed Jerlin in Li Pan's arms. "Go sit there. Tell me if you're hungry." Carrying Jerlin, Li Pan found a place to sit. Chen Zhao started to get busy. Li Pan looked at Chen Zhao's figure. She saw Chen Zhao stomp a hole in the originally flat and solid ground and then stuff a white crystal into the hole. She didn't understand Chen Zhao's intentions, nor did she know what he'd stuffed in. Chen Zhao circled around the area, the diameter getting bigger and bigger. Not long after, the entire square was surrounded by countless small pits. Li Pan looked at the countless holes around her. She guessed that this was some kind of magic array. But what shocked her more was the way Chen Zhao had set it all up. Chen Zhao had only made each hole with 1 step. This method wasn't difficult for any spiritualist. But the problem was that there wasn't 1, 10, or 100 small pits here. Instead, there were thousands of them. From Li Pan's angle, she felt like she was on a beehive. After working for more than an hour, Chen Zhao finally finished. Then he went to Li Pan and took out some food. Hungry,